traveling from Hunter. Author, Battle Ring. Chapter 101 Kurapika's Request. Fischer's Concern. How does it feel to be here? Looking at Kurapika, whose mental outlook has changed a lot, Fischer asked gently. Good. I made the right choice this time. Although it's only been 2 months, I have already collected the eyes of a pair of people from the Nozra family. Based on the current situation, I have the confidence to recover the eyes of the tribe, Kurapika said with a smile. That's good. Extend your hand and let me see how strong your thoughts are now. Fischer nodded slightly, then materialized a detection phone and said to Kurapika, thinking strength? Although puzzled, Kurapika stretched out his hand. 393,200. What is this? Looking at the detector in Fischer's hand, Kurapika asked like everyone else. The 613 detector for the strength of thought can detect the strength of your thought. Hey, it seems that you haven't improved your mind energy much recently. Looking at the numbers on the value, Fischer replied. So that's it. Is this the strength of my thoughts? However, what you said is quite right. Recently, I have been practicing various skills, so I put aside the improvement of Nianchi for the time being. Kurapika was a little surprised, then nodded, and said truthfully, that's right. Your current shortcoming is indeed using skills. Fischer is also very clear why Kurapika did this. Because of the restriction oath, Kurapika's Nianchi cultivation has reached the sky in one step, but there are still many deficiencies in the use of skills. In this case, it is indeed necessary to put the practice of using skills on the agenda. Otherwise, even if you have a strong mind, without the assistance or proficient skills, you will be handicapped when fighting. So I temporarily put aside the improvement of mind energy and focused on using skills. It's just that my fighting talent is good. Kurapika nodded and said softly. By the way, Fischer, what are you doing here? It was Mr. Fischer just now. But now it's Fischer. Fischer was a little speechless. It's not in your character that you like others to call you an adult, isn't it? So that's what I call it. As for just now, there are other housekeepers here, so I naturally have to follow my housekeeping rules and address you as an adult. Kurapika explained with a smile. Well, it's up to you. 11. This time I came here to give you this. In the future, you will report the location to Wutong every month, and I will ask Wutong to send it to you. Fischer didn't care about it, reached out and took out the vitality fruit, threw it over, and then ordered. This is? Kurapika looked at the box in his hand with some doubts. That's the vitality fruit, which can enhance the mind energy. You'll know it after you eat it. Vital energy fruit. Could it be the fruit of the vitality tree? I have read the relevant literature, and it is said that this plant has been extinct for hundreds of years. Is it true that Kurapika has read a lot of books, is knowledgeable, and knows a lot of secrets? After hearing Fischer say immediately after the title of Yuan-Chi fruit came to mind. You know, even Grandpa Gino didn't know the existence of vitality fruit. And, the same goes for great-grandfather Maha. That's what old man Nitaro knows. Eat it quickly. I let others cultivate this thing. It can increase your thoughts. Fischer nodded, and then urged, with anticipation in his eyes. Seeing this, Kurapika didn't think there was anything wrong, opened the box, took out one of the fruits, and bit it. Then, the world-famous painting was born. Ha, it's so pretty, hee. Posting this on the website of the Hunter Association will definitely make a lot of money. Looking at the picture on the phone, Fischer gloated and thought badly. I saw that there was a photo of Kurapika's face distorted to the extreme on Fischer's mobile phone at this time, which was deliberately done by Fischer. I didn't think of this a few times before, but this time I just thought of it, so Fischer did it. Give it to me quickly. Kurapika, who was covering her mouth and reluctantly trying to swallow the vitality fruit, heard Fischer's words, and rushed over directly regardless of the sour feeling in her mouth. The room suddenly became chaotic. Really, when did you become so naughty, Fischer? After successfully getting Fischer to delete the photos in the phone, Kurapika complained to Fischer with still a bit of shame on his expression. Well, it's just to make you happy, Fischer said with a smile. This joke is too much. Kurapika's eyes twitched, still very upset. Immediately, Kurapika remembered something, and asked Fischer, by the way, Fischer, since you're here, can I ask you something? What about Phantom Troupe? You told me not to interfere. Fischer blinked and said, no, it's not this, Phantom Troupe. I'll take it all by myself. I want to ask you to do something else. Kurapika shook her head, denying. Tell me, what's the matter? Fischer heard the words and said, you know Batra, the world's richest man, Fischer. After pretending to cough, Kurapika said seriously. Batra? You want me to treat his little girlfriend, and then use Batra to expand the way to find the red eye? Hearing this name, Fischer's mind was full of thoughts, and he immediately figured out that Kurapika asked himself this time. The goal of. As expected of Fischer, I knew right away what I wanted to do. I heard from Killua that you have a very powerful healing ability, so I thought of asking you to help treat Batra's lover. Kurapika nodded and said with a smile. You're not borrowing my strength. Fischer glanced at Kurapika and said contemptuously. No, I'm using your power, not the power of the entire Zoldyck family. After all, Fischer, you haven't taken over the Zoldyck family yet, and asking for your help doesn't count as involving the entire Zoldyck family. Kurapika shook his head and said firmly, 3.1 False reasoning. However, yes, I promise you to go. I think that guy is quite pleasing to the eye, and I don't mind making a move. Fischer gave Kurapika another look of contempt, and then agreed. Batra, the world's richest man, Fischer knew about it both in his previous life and in this life, and he also admired this guy's infatuation. And, thank you for being somewhat interested in Greedy Island. It's really helpful, thank you so much, Fischer. Seeing that Fischer agreed, Kurapika was slightly relieved, and then thanked him sincerely. You're welcome, I just happened to be looking for that guy too. I want to see how this guy Kim made the Island of Greed. Last time in the Secret Realm, Busong seems to have said that Jinzen is from the field. This ability should be inextricably related to the production of the Island of Greed. It's good to go and see. Chapter 102, Lovers Get Married. I now fully understand why so many people want to be a hunter and get a hunter license. We are two unknown people, just showed our hunter license, and Batra, a rich man, agreed to meet us. Sitting in the black car, Fischer said with a smile to Kurapika beside him. Kurapika works as a bodyguard in the Nozra family, and his reputation is not obvious. Fischer, as a young patriarch of the Zoldyck family, has no information from the outside world. However, this was the case, just showing the hunter license, Batra agreed to meet them, and the influence of the hunter license could be seen. Well, it's a very normal thing, otherwise there wouldn't be so many people who would rush for a card, Kurapika said with a smile. Soon, the two entered a huge manor under the leadership of the black-clothed bodyguards. The car stopped in front of a huge and extremely luxurious villa. You two, please follow me. As soon as the car stopped, a man in black came over, opened the door, and said respectfully, lead the way. Kurapika said as the Fissers got out of the car. Led by the bodyguards in black, Fischer and Kurapika 09 entered the villa. After passing through the spacious and gorgeous corridor, the two of Sol came to a hall. Please come inside. After saying respectfully to the two, the bodyguard opened the door. Fischer and Kurapika didn't procrastinate and walked in. Welcome, Mr. Fischer, Mr. Kurapika. What caught their eyes was an old man with grey hair and a benevolent face. This old man is none other than Batra, a rich man who is as rich as a country. At this time, the wealthy man had already stood up from the sofa, walking towards Fischer and Kurapika with a joyful smile on his face. Behind him are several bodyguards in black, and a man in a suit with pointed ears. When Kurapika contacted him, he said that he has the ability to heal his lover. It was a piece of information that made him very excited. Even if it might be fake, he still has to try it. As long as he can heal his lover, even if it is fake news, he will not let it go. It is better to believe in what is there than to believe in what is not. What's more, the Kurapika who contacted him is a professional hunter with a hunter license, and he can't be indecisive. It's so scary. I dare not show any hostility towards them just by looking at them. Behind Batra, the professional hunter Juzajila, who was specially invited by Batra to crack the Island of Greed, was looking at them in shock. Fischer and Kurapika both. From the moment Fischer and Kurapika entered, Juzajila had already used condensation. At the first glance, Juzajila saw the incomparably tough air conditioning wrapped around the two of them. That's the terrifying thought energy after thousands of tempers, and it's impossible for masters to do this kind of thing. He hasn't cultivated his thoughts to this level yet. And, not just this, the first time he saw the two of them, he felt an extremely strong sense of crisis. That is not killing intent, but the instinct of facing someone stronger than oneself. My instinct told me that the two people in front of me were very dangerous and should not be enemies. Hey, Batra, it's really hard to see you. Facing Batra's enthusiasm, Fischer said lightly. As soon as these words came out, Batra's face froze immediately because he felt that Fischer's words were ironic. Okay, stop talking nonsense and take me to see your little lover. After treating your little lover well, let's talk about my conditions. Looking at Batra's froze face, Fischer didn't care, and went straight to the point, straight to the goal. When Kurapika contacted Batra before, he communicated with Batra. As long as he can treat Batra's little lover, Batra will accept it as long as it is not unbearable. This is why Batra is so enthusiastic about Fischer and others. After all, without diamonds, without porcelain work, without 2s and 3s, I dare not go to Liangshan. Since Fischer and Kurapika raised such a condition with him, they must be very confident. Fischer is not afraid of Batra's regret later. Ah, good, good, this way please. Batra heard the words, and didn't care about other things, said quickly, and then walked quickly, leading the way for Fischer and Kurapika. Fischer and Kurapika slowly followed. Neither of them was in a hurry. This time, although the two came to the door on their own initiative, they were not the ones asking for help. But Batra, so they naturally wouldn't get flustered in a hurry. Juzajila and other bodyguards also hurriedly followed. Soon, everyone came to a room. Both of you, please come inside. Batra opened the door and greeted the two of them. Fischer responded lightly, and then stepped into it. The room is large, but the layout is not gorgeous, but very simple. Once you enter the room, you will be greeted by a very pleasant scent of flowers. In the center of the room, on a huge bed, a pale young woman was lying there quietly, like a sleeping beauty. On both sides of the bed, 2 rows of maids are standing respectfully. You too. Please be sure to cure Aliza, Batra said nervously. After contacting Kurapika, he deliberately brought his lover Aliza back from the hospital. Well, it was your infatuation that moved me. Otherwise I really wouldn't have come here. The old man Nitaro is the only one who can afford me. Fischer glanced at the nervous Batra, said lightly, and then walked towards the big bed in the center of the room. Not everyone can please him. It is he who chooses the client, not the client who chooses him. The only one who can move him is Nitaro. Nitaro. Fischer's words stunned everyone present and shocked them. The people present were not simple people, so they could immediately recognize who Fischer was referring to as Nitaro. It's the president of the Hunter Society, Isaac Nitaro, not a 990 man with the same name. For a moment, several people were stunned in place. Is the person in front of them an existence of this level? Let's go. Master Fischer takes action, then the matter will definitely be successful. Looking at the few people who were stunned, Kurapika said gently, and then walked over. But at this time, Batra and Ujigila realized it and hurriedly followed. My lord, I'm begging you. Batra came to the bed and stood beside Fischer, lowering her body very low, begging in a low voice. Fischer didn't respond, but slowly stretched out his hand and held it in Sleeping Beauty's hand. The emerald green light instantly enveloped Sleeping Beauty's whole body. Even Batra, an ordinary person, could see it clearly. This is the formed form of N. As long as the N is willing, ordinary people can also see it. Just like Hwasi-do lying in the sky arena, even ordinary people can see Transmuter's avatar. Seeing this emerald green light, Batra was extremely excited. However, in less than 2 seconds, Fischer cancelled N, which made Batra, who was expecting it, stupid. However, the next moment, Batra noticed that the eyelids of his lover Aliza, who had been silent for a long time, began to move and twitch slightly. Then, under Batra's expectant gaze, the lover who had been asleep for several years slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 103 Yitan, to find fault. After spending half a day in the lobby of Batra's villa and drinking 2 pots of black tea, Fischer and Kurapika finally waited for Batra's arrival. Sorry for keeping the 2 benefactors waiting for so long. Batra sincerely apologized to Fischer and Kurapika as soon as he came over. Because of the reunion after a long absence with his little lover, he completely forgot the existence of Fischer and Kurapika. It wasn't until the bodyguard couldn't stand it anymore and reminded Batra that Batra remembered this and hurried over. It's okay, it's better to say that your rare temperament makes me feel good about you, Fischer said lightly, and didn't care about the fact that the 2 of them were left alone for a long time. Kurapika beside him also nodded gently, expressing that he didn't care. Batra was relieved and let go of the worries in his heart. After all, he is his own benefactor, and Batra is really worried that Fischer will be angry. He is not an ungrateful person. Then, Mr. Fischer, if you have any requirements, please follow me. Batra came to the opposite side of Fischer and said seriously. On the way here, Ujigila had already reminded him. This time, Fischer and Kurapika who came to cure his lover were very difficult, so he must not be in a hurry. He is also very aware of this, so he treats Fischer and Kurapika very politely and seriously. Then I said, I need a game console for Greedy Island. At the same time, I knows that your purpose of clearing the island of greed is to get the breath of the Archangel to heal your little lover. Now I've cured her, but I don't want you to stop buying the Greedy Island. I need you to continue to follow your plan and hand to clear the game. That's fine. Fischer nodded and said bluntly. I see, I understand. I will follow your instructions. Batra heard the words. Without the slightest hesitation, he agreed directly. This cost is just a drop in the bucket for him. From the very beginning, he decided to go bankrupt to cure his lover Aliza. Now the cost of Fischer's request is only an insignificant bit of property compared to his net worth, and he doesn't care at all. Okay, if someone named Kiryuan can come to you at that time and say they want to help you pass the game, you can just let them enter the game. Fischer nodded and continued. A Kiryuan can, right? I see. Batra remembers their names and nods to show that he has remembered. Well, the next thing is about Kurapika. You talk to Kurapika. Fischer nodded again, then got up and left here. The next thing about the red eye is for Kurapika to talk to Batra himself. He is not interested in this matter. Yes, Ujigila, please go to the game room, sir, and let him choose a game software. Batra got up quickly, and begged Ujigila behind him. I see, Your Excellency Batra. Ujigila responded quickly, and then quickly followed Fischer's pace, leading the way for Fischer. The 2 quickly left the hall. So, Kurapika, let's talk. Kurapika, what is it that you want to ask me for? As long as I can do it, I will never be stingy. For Kurapika, Batra did not have the extremely respectful attitude when he treated Fischer, but he was also very gentle and respectful. After all, Kurapika took the initiative to contact him to treat him with the existence of his lover. Yes, Mr. Batra. Actually, I have something to ask you, I think. In the hall, Kurapika and Batra began to discuss the red eye issue. On the other side, under the guidance of Ujigila, Fischer came to Batra's game room where game consoles are specially placed. Master Fischer, you came at just the right time. Your Excellency Batra just collected a new game software some time ago. otherwise your request would really not be fulfilled. Holding a game software, Godzilla came to Fischer and respectfully said to Fischer, "Yeah, then I'm really lucky." "Master Fischer, let me calm down and explain to you how to enter the Island of Greed and what you need to pay attention to inside," Godzilla asked Ying. There's no need for that. I know this game better than you guys." Fischer shook his head, took the game software from Godzilla directly and said. Afterwards, Fischer entered the game neatly while being stunned. "Well, does Master Fischer know this game so well?" Looking at the memory card inserted in the game software, Godzilla asked with a grin. At this time, Fischer has successfully entered the initial hut of Greed Island. This is a very sci-fi hut. The whole hut is composed of game codes unique to the world of HunterxHunter. In the middle is a floating workbench. Behind the workbench sits a man with a sci-fi feel cute white-haired girl in a hat. The cute girl spoke directly after seeing Fischer. "Welcome to the world of GI. You are Lord Fischer Zoldyck, right? Next we will explain this game. Do you want to continue listening?" Yitan, one of the producers of Greed Island, Modhao, is carrying out her own explanation task with a paralyzed face. No need, I'm not here to play the game, just to see what kind of game Jin that bastard made, so I don't need you to explain." Fischer waved his hand casually, rejecting Ethan's offer a program that explains itself. After finishing speaking, Fischer walked towards the stairs in front of the floating workbench, and walked down under the speechless gaze of Sister Yitan. Can that bastard? Is someone here to find fault? Do you want to inform Lee Isa, or ask Jin to wipe his ass directly? After Fischer completely disappeared from sight, Sister Yitan opened her mouth and said blankly. This kind of thought appeared immediately. Obviously, Sister Yitan also knew how strong her companion's ability to cause trouble was. Chapter 104 Brazen Jin and Furious Jin. Really, the Island of Greed is circled by Jinsen. This thing is completely competing with this world for territory. It's the same as the secret realm formed by Lemuel's afterlife. It's no wonder that Jin was able to pull Lemuel's remaining power to seal Busong so many years before I appeared. Standing on the spacious prairie, Fischer looked up at the sky, using concentrate to observe the sky. Read lightly. Although Busong cooperated on purpose with the broken divinity taken from Lemuel's remnant soul, Xia has a very clear understanding of this world. Fischer dares to say that in the human kingdom, no one knows this world better than him, except for that old tycoon of Brazen. As soon as he entered here, Fischer saw the huge network above the sky. This vast network of covers the skies over the Isle of Greed and rules the land. This is just the most basic force. Besides, there are many different forces connected with this force and vassalized on this network. If you want to say it, Jin's power is the Emperor, and those who are connected to Jin's power in 99 City are ministers. Fischer knows that these powers are the of Jin's companions who made the Isle of Greed together. In addition, these connections on the network in the sky also belong to Jin's own power. In this case, other people can't see it at all. Fischer is sure that if Jin himself did not take the initiative to reveal this network, even the old man Nitero would not be able to detect it. That is, Fischer, with the blessing of broken divinity, saw this network. Without the blessing of broken divinity, Fischer himself can't see it, so it's very safe. Is this what Brazen said before, the domain? I don't know what ability Jin's domain has. Rubbing his chin, Fischer muttered to himself. Boom. There was a roaring roar, and a golden light rushed down from the sky. Hey, these guys finally took action. Seeing the falling light, Fischer smiled, Jack, and said. From the moment he got down, Fischer felt a sense of surveillance coming from all directions. However, Fischer didn't expect these guys to be so calm. It took me half an hour to observe the network in the sky before someone came over. You are new to the game, right? The player said as soon as he landed. Hey, I remember this guy is the one who attacked Chrollo in the original book. Caught me? Then let's get rid of it. Fischer muttered in a low voice, looking at the guy who said a word and then started flipping through the card collection book, as if wanting to check his own information. On this wide grassland, Fischer didn't deliberately whisper, so this sentence was heard by the man with dreadlocks on the opposite side. Hearing Fischer's words, Van immediately wanted to laugh wildly. However, the next moment, he couldn't laugh anymore. Laughed at him because he was out of breath. In an instant, Fischer appeared behind this guy, and directly took off the guy's head. Because the speed is too fast, this guy is still interesting. Looking at his own headless corpse in front of him, this guy opened his mouth, but finally he didn't say his last words. His eyes dimmed. At this moment, the surveillance eyes that had been on Fischer from the very beginning disappeared completely at this moment. Obviously, seeing the scene in front of them, these players knew that Fischer was not someone to be messed with, and they didn't dare to have any evil intentions. The speed that makes the enemy even have no chance to react, and the existence of the opportunity to not even use the card is not something they can provoke. Moreover, the scene just now let the watchers know that Fischer is a decisive person to kill. They didn't dare to bet that once Fischer was a murderer, they might be killed by him as soon as he appeared in front of him, just like that unlucky guy just now. Phew, it's much easier. You have to have someone to scare the chickens and monkeys, otherwise these guys won't stop. Feeling that the surveillance eyes around him disappeared, Fischer said calmly without changing his face. Immediately, Fischer put his hands in his pockets, and walked slowly towards one of the directions where he had surveillance eyes before. Take your time, there are still 2 months before the auction on September 1st, enough for me to understand the domain of Greed Island. On the other side, in an active volcano with extremely harsh environment, Jin was holding a huge piece of barbecue at the crater and boldly grilling the barbecue. On the side, a monster with a huge slit in its thigh was looking at him angrily. What are you looking at? What happened if I eat a piece of your meat? It will grow back in a few days. Seeing the monster staring at him angrily, the bastard Jin stared back fiercely and growled loudly. Woo! The monster was also angry, and regardless of the sense of crisis that Jin gave him, he opened his bloody mouth and bit it. The result is naturally conceivable. This monster directly entered the active volcano, almost made this active volcano erupt. Really? How stingy! Don't I just eat a piece of your meat? Why should I be so angry? However, Jin, the bastard, muttered after throwing the monster into the volcano, complaining about the monster. If this monster hears it, it will definitely be possessed by Zhuliang. I've never seen such a brazen person. Time passed quietly, half an hour passed, and Jin's barbecue was finally completed. However, just as Jin opened his mouth wide to bite down, the mobile phone in his pocket rang. Well, this guy hasn't contacted me for several years. Why did he call all of a sudden? Looking at the contacts on the phone, Jin was a little puzzled, but he still connected. Moxie, Yitan, why did you contact me? While biting the barbecue, Jin asked indistinctly. The next moment, the roasted meat in Jinku sprayed out and roared furiously. What did you say? Chapter 105. 2 monster families, worries come true. The people here are real people. Definitely Kim got it from somewhere else, or he's a native of this island. 17. However, how did Jin make these guys cooperate so much? No. These guys seem to have no memory of Greedy Island at all. It seems that the memory has been erased and instilled with new memories. It's a crime. Would you like to talk to that old man Nitaro? If Nitaro knows, maybe he will be arrested. Hey, that picture is a bit beautiful. Thinking of the battle between the 2 top 5 ninjas, Fischer felt a little excited. Just do it. Go out now, and explain the things here to Nitaro. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Fischer made a decisive decision to leave the island of Greed and go out to call Nitaro. However, before Fischer could act, the familiar roar came into Fischer's ears again. Bastard, you think I'm going to commit a crime? As soon as the light fell to the ground, Jin, who hadn't seen him for a long time, rushed towards Fischer, grabbed Fischer by the collar, and roared loudly. Eh? Why are you here? When Jin appeared, Fischer was also very dazed, staring blankly at the man with a stubble and a slovenly appearance. This is the domain I created. Isn't it normal for me to come here? Jin loosened Fischer's collar, glared fiercely at Fischer, and shouted unhappily. Is it really your domain? How do you explain these guys? Most of these people are normal people, only a few NPCs and products. How do you explain their strangeness? Fischer looked as expected, and then asked Xingshi. You're a killer, why bother with this? Macron. Jin Buqian said bitterly. Of course I don't need to worry about this, but it's definitely very interesting to make trouble for you bastard. He. Speak quickly, or I will go out now and tell Nitaro what happened here. Kui urged with a proud face. TCH. Do you think old Nitaro doesn't know anything about this place? Old man Nitaro already knew about the things here, and he also allowed the existence of this special place called Greed Island. The people who were transferred here are all a group of hard-working people. They are residents of small countries all over the world that have been devastated by wars and have suffered all kinds of trauma. I am communicating with them, and only after obtaining their consent can I change their memories, so that they feel that they are residents here and live on this small island without any worries. Jin slightly sighed, and then explained, looking at the surrounding crowd is also full of pity. Hey, that's how it is. I said, how can such an inhumane thing like memory modification be allowed? It's okay if the person concerned agrees. After hearing Jin's explanation, Fischer suddenly realized. Okay, let's talk about your business. What are you doing here? I created this island of Greed to improve the strength of some rookies. You are so strong, why do you still come here? Jin gave Fischer a contemptuous look, and then asked seriously. Indeed, this place is indeed a good place for cultivation. It says it's for rookies, but it's actually for your son. Fischer replied with a look of disdain. Well, that's about it. Okay, don't change the subject. Tell me, what are you doing here? Jin shrugged, without denying it, and continued to ask. I'll talk about that later. Let me see how strong you are. Hey, are you going to fight me? Let the horse come here. No, I don't want to fight with you. I just want to see your potential strength. Fischer shook his head and denied it. When he said it, he put a hand on Jin's shoulder and directly realized the detection phone. 1,100,326. Hey, your Nianchi cultivation is really terrifying. Looking at the value in the phone, even Fischer showed a surprised expression. You freaks family are all monsters. Immediately, Fischer looked at Jin with disgust and said, with Gun's cultivation speed, as long as he doesn't get lazy, Wang's teenage spirit value can definitely exceed 1 million. And Jin is also in his 30s, and his mind energy value has already exceeded 1 million. Thinking about dong freaks who might still be wandering around the Dark Continent now, Fischer couldn't help complaining. However, I am not qualified to say that. The Zoldyck family also produced themselves, Chrollo and Aluka. Monster to monster. Hey, this thing is for detecting thoughts, right? You have developed a good thing. Seeing the numbers on Fischer's phone, Jin's IQ immediately guessed the function of detecting the phone. 1,100,000. Not bad. Rubbing his chin, Jin kept nodding, obviously satisfied with his potential strength. Seeking flowers. Hey, wait, I almost fooled you. Quickly tell me, what are you doing here on Greedy Island? After a moment of complacency, Jin came to his senses and continued to ask, you bastard, do you care about Greed Island so much? Fischer raised his eyebrows when he heard this. That's natural. The Island of Greed was specially created by me to deal with various crises that may be encountered in the future, and I can't let you destroy it at will. Jin raised his eyebrows, very complacent, and didn't mean to hide it at all. Having said that, Fischer remembered the situation when Jin came here just now. After slightly raising his eyebrows, Shell asked, you guy, you didn't use a card to come here directly from the Island of Greed. Jin remembered that in the original book, after Gun cleared the customs, he used the card spell outside the Island of Greed and arrived at Kate. 0. Hey, did you know the card not long after you came in? However, I will not hide it from you. The Island of Greed is the rear area I am preparing for, and it is the backing for me to march into the Dark Continent. As long as the Island of Greed exists, even if I encounter danger in the Dark Continent, I can use the card to fly back. Jin said triumphantly. May I ask, Jin, in the previous secret realm, can you use this ability? Looking at Jin in this state, Fischer couldn't help but asked in shock. Sure enough, as soon as these words came out, Jin's complexion changed suddenly, like an eggplant beaten by frost. That place doesn't count. Those two guys in the secret realm are monsters among monsters, so it doesn't count. Jin said rascally. In that place, his domain abilities were only basic abilities, and none of the other special abilities could be used. For this, Fischer just shrugged and didn't care. Immediately, thank you for looking at the sky, Jin. Your network is your domain ontology. How do you do it? Hearing this, Jin's pupils shrank immediately. What he was most worried about still happened. When Fischer was in the secret realm before, when Fischer threatened Busong and told them to retreat, Jin knew that Fischer had a big secret. This secret made Fischer very mysterious. So after Yitan informed him that Fischer had entered the Island of Greed, he rushed over in a hurry because he was afraid that Fischer would be able to see the cornerstone of his domain. Sure enough, can you see it? Ding. Chapter 106, Jin's Confidence! Careless! This was created after I observed the secret place of after-death reading for several years. In the beginning, I really just wanted to fulfill my childhood dream and create a game world. However, after entering the secret place of after-death reading, I was inspired and transformed this Island of Greed and used it as my base camp. In a sense, I'm invincible here. Because here, I have the assistance of this field. In this field, my strength will be doubled. Even the old Nitero's 100 style Avalakitesvara interferes with the nature of time, and I can use this field to suppress it. Sighing slightly, Jin slowly began to talk, and as he spoke, Jin's face revealed a smug look. Avalakitesvara, the 127 Nitero Gaisen is basically incomprehensible in prayer gestures, but he can suppress it, which is enough for him to play for a lifetime. In fact, like most people, it is impossible for Jin to disclose this kind of ability to others, because it will make Baron analyze his weaknesses. But no way, the person who called was Fischer. It is the existence he fears the most. The purpose of Fischer's coming here this time is to discover the peculiarity of his Island of Greed, and to analyze the domain of his Island of Greed. If it was someone else, who directly kicked open the door of other people's house and came in to make trouble, Jin would definitely kill him immediately. Even if he was a friend, he would give him a good beating. However, it happened to be Fischer. He didn't dare to do anything casually. Jin is also very afraid of Fischer's power that can easily put himself into a life and death crisis. In this case, it is better to spread out one's ability directly. According to his understanding of Fischer's younger brother, as long as his son Gun keeps walking with Killua Zoldyck, it is impossible for Fischer and himself to become hostile. So even if you expose your Island of Greed ability, you will be fine. I have to say that Ginger is still old and spicy, and this guy Jin is really an old fritters. In just a few months, Fischer's rarely leaked information has been collected, and Fischer's character has been analyzed from these clues. Indeed, Shell is a brother-in-law. No, it's better to say that Fischer takes the members of the family very seriously. Hisoka, the old brother's partner of eel fans, came to provoke him, and Fischer even spared him once because of the existence of eel fans. And Killua is friends with Jin's son Gun. As long as Jin doesn't deliberately provoke him, then Fischer will never confront Jin. In other words, the possibility of becoming an enemy between King and Fischer is almost zero. Hey, It's really scary. So, now I'm not a fish on the sticky board, and I can be slaughtered by you at will. Fischer was also amazed when he heard this. But then he narrowed his eyes slightly and said with a smile, "Are you joking? Even if I fight old man Nitero, I don't want to fight you." Jin hearing this, the corners of his eyes twitched slightly, and he glanced at Fischer contemptuously. Although this kid is not an old man, he is very bad. "Well, don't be so nervous. I didn't come here to find fault, I just came to see what your field is like. However, it seems that if you can't break through the barrier of Lemuel's afterlife secret realm, your field is useless. Why do you regard this place as the rear of the Dark Continent?" Fischer shook his head, expressing that he had no malice, but then asked in a puzzled manner. "You thought the Dark Continent was full of that kind of existence?" "That kind of existence is also top-notch in the Dark Continent. We who belong to the rookie level in the Dark Continent, even if we enter the Dark Continent, it is the edge of the Dark Continent, and we will not encounter that kind of terrifying existence. The ones that can be encountered are also several levels lower, the level of the 5 major disasters. For an existence of that level, even if I get hit, I can still use the power of the Island of Greed and use card spells to teleport myself back." Jin heard this and looked at Fischer speechlessly. This guy, too far-sighted. Thinking has crossed so many levels, and I want to confront those terrifying monsters and gods. Should it be said that a newborn calf is not afraid of tigers? And, is this Vesai this game? Huh? Who is Vesai? Yes, that's exactly how you went there. Fischer was also slightly taken aback, and then sighed slightly. Jin and the others were not targeted by the gods over there, and indeed, as he said, they would only encounter some weak monsters and disasters. But I am different. Once he goes to the Dark Continent, he will definitely attract the top existences of the 3 major forces on the Dark Continent to kill him. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Jin, you flew over from outside the game, so give me some of those cards. Shaking his head, Fischer didn't want to think about such a headache for the time being, and asked Jin for advice. Here you are, get out of here quickly. Don't come again." Faced with Fischer's begging, Jin agreed without thinking, took out several cards from his card collection book with a wave of his hand and threw them over, rushing in disgust. Although these gadgets that can be used outside the Island of Greed are expensive, they can avoid disasters if they lose money. The main thing is that this guy doesn't attack his own Island of Greed. Nothing is a problem. "Thanks, then I'll go first." Catching the cards thrown over, Fischer glanced at them, then threw a few cards into the 2.3 system space, and waved his hand as a thank you. Let's go, let's go." Jin still waved his hands and continued to chase people away. "Goodbye." Fischer didn't procrastinate, and directly used a leaving card that Jin gave just now, and left the Island of Greed. After Fischer left, Jin rushed to the initial hut in a hurry. "Yitan, quickly delete the information of that kid Fischer, and put that kid into the blacklist. Don't let that kid come in again." Upon arriving here, Jin ordered urgently. "The Island of Greed is also the real world. You can't stop that person from coming." Yitan didn't act according to Jin's order, but said lightly, "Forward, careless." Chapter 107 Flying and Blinking. Fischer's ambition. Flying? This kind of card does not appear in the Island of Greed. I don't know what it does. In Batra's villa, in the room Batra prepared for Fischer, Fischer looked at the card in his hand and said with great interest. Immediately, Fischer looked at the introduction on the card. Flying, record the person or object you want to go to in your mind, and then say the word flying to reach the person or object you want to go to. Hey, interesting. Is there no limit to this kind of introduction? The card should be set with a very powerful tracking, which can track people and things without limit, and as long as it matches, you can go to the place you want to go in your mind. Give it a try. After a long silence, Fischer raised the corners of his mouth slightly, showing a smile, and said. Afterwards, Fischer yelled out after thinking about the villa in Kukalu Mountain in his mind. Flight. As soon as the words fell, a wave of N emerged from the card, covering Fischer's body in an instant. 09. After writing this, Fischer rushed out of the window and re-entered the sky. Interesting. I can't break this N with my strength. This kind of power is somewhat familiar. It is the power of the oath. It seems to be the work of Jin's painstaking efforts. Fischer, who was wrapped in the sky, said unexpectedly. Just now, he tried to use the N-chi that exploded himself, trying to rush out of the N of the flying spell. However, even if Fischer erupts the 8-layer enhancer's energy, it cannot destroy this power zone. At the same time, when his mind energy collided with the power of the flying spell, Fischer felt a familiar yet unfamiliar force from it. That was the power Fischer felt earlier when he made the vow in Kurapika. That is to say, the flying spell is related to the oath, which touches some kind of rules. This kind of power was born in Jin's domain, so it seems that Jin's domain is related to the restriction and oath. At first, I wanted to do some research to see if I could create a domain like Jin. But if you use the restriction oath, then forget it. I'd better keep a respectful distance from things like restrictions and oaths. However, it's no wonder that Jin will regard the Island of Greed as his whole card. I have to say that this guy Jin is a real genius, with an extraordinary IQ, a huge brain hole, and extraordinary talent. He was the only one among them who dared to think about and do such a thing as the field, and he succeeded. I didn't even think of this myself. If it weren't for his broken divinity, it would be impossible to find the golden. This guy, except for the last time in the secret realm, probably hasn't revealed his real n. Usually fighting with others should be just those battles copied from others. Time passed in Fischer's thinking, and in just a few minutes, Fischer crossed half of the human kingdom and returned to the dry mountain. This speed is also a bit worse than Fischer's space magic flickering, but there are advantages and disadvantages between the two. One's own magic flicker needs to be imprinted, and the magic power consumed will also be determined according to the distance. As long as the magic power is enough, it can be teleported in an instant. The flying spell means that as long as you think about it in your mind, you can fly over the people and places you want to find. Both may sound like flying is inferior to blink, but flying is a spell card that does not consume the user's n, while magic blink does. Unfortunately, I don't have this kind of technology. In terms of magic, I have 6 orifices, but I don't know much about it. Otherwise, I can also make magic items similar to flying cards. In this way, there is no need for the magic power in the body to disappear every time the big map is transmitted. Lying on the familiar bed, looking at the familiar ceiling, Fischer murmured to himself. Jumping up, Fischer landed on the ground and walked towards the bathroom. Let's take a shower first. How about it? Can it be cultivated? In the botanical garden of Chrollo Mountain, Fischer asked Crook, who was stroking his chin and observing the kiwi fruit tree that Menchai brought back from the wetland. The ramets can definitely be ramets, but the growth cycle of this thing is too long, and it cannot be shortened at all. The disadvantages brought about by cultivation outweigh the advantages, Crook said confidently, but the next moment he frowned and asked Fischer. If you want to cultivate this thing by division, it takes too much effort and the cost is very high. He does not recommend cultivation. How? Fischer didn't know much about this kind of thing either. I'm branching the vitality tree right now, and I need to spend a lot of time observing it. If you let me cultivate this, then I need to spend most of my time observing it. Then the production increase plan of the vitality tree will be postponed indefinitely. Crook told the truth. She is now studying how to branch out new vitality trees from the vitality tree without damage, so how can there be so much time to cultivate new species? Although she also likes this kind of work, she does it on a first-come, first-served basis. She first expands the branches of the vitality tree, and doesn't want to change the target at will. So that's the case, then let's put it on hold for now. Fischer nodded knowingly, even giving up the idea of letting Crook distract himself from cultivating kiwi trees. Fischer wants to see the birth of a new vitality tree earlier than the kiwi fruit tree that does not bear much fruit. Fischer has an ambition, that is to let the entire Zoldyck family reach the limit of 5 million thoughts, and make all members of the Zoldyck family become gods. 377. I will take this kiwi tree. At this time, Gailu's voice came from not far away. You? Is it possible? Fischer was a little surprised. After all, Gailu is a poison hunter, and there should be no research on this aspect. Poison hunter also knows how to deal with various plants. I still have some experience in this regard. Gailu also saw Fischer's thoughts and explained gently. Won't it keep you up? Fischer asked. Crook is a plant hunter, who originally specialized in studying plants, but Gailu is not. Let Gailu cultivate kiwi trees. Won't it delay Gailu herself? No, not at all. I don't need to waste too much time developing poisons now. I just need to read more books. Gelu shook his head and said, Is that so? I'll leave it to you. Fischer also nodded when he heard that Gailu would not be delayed, and entrusted the kiwi tree to Gailu. I'll help too. Menchai, who came behind Gailu, also said immediately, No, I think it's better for you to go to the wetmile wetland. It's too much of a waste of your cells here. Fischer didn't say that. Even though I think so, Menchai doesn't want to intervene because of what he wants to do. After all, even though they are their own direct stewards, Fischer will not restrict them particularly because of this, and the degree of freedom is still very high. Chapter 108 Integration of Systems, ready to go to Youkexin. For the next month or so, Fischer stayed in Chrollo Mountain to practice the improvement of potential energy, various skills, the development of thundering fruit, twisting fruit, squeezing fruit, sweet fruit, three-color domineering, and even Fischer with natural teeth have not been put on hold. As long as it is the ability he knows, Fischer is improving rapidly. Over the past month or so, Fischer's potential strength has also been raised to the same level as gold under the effect of cultivation and vitality fruit. 1,110,320. And the various skills are constantly improving. The power of the thunderbolt fruit became more and more terrifying. The ability to reverse the fruit is to develop the power to reverse the attack. As for the sweet fruit, various petrified moves of this thing have also been developed, but the appearance of the moves is different from that of Hancock. For a man like Fischer to put on those poses like Hancock, Fischer thinks he might as well kill himself. Think about the picture. Naturally, the squeezed fruit has not fallen, and it can already be used initially. However, it is still very difficult to achieve a kind of random extraction of all kinds of unfavorable things that invade the body that Fischer expected. Because the result of a human body is very complicated, it requires a very good understanding of the structure of the human body. For this, Fischer needs to read more books. As for Tanxingye, after more than a month of practice, Tanxingye's Mingdao Yupo has made great progress, and he can release a near-round Mingdao. The remaining three-color domineering, Fischer chose to combine the three-color domineering with an system. Armed color domineering fusion with Enhancer's mind. When fighting Rayleigh in the world of One Piece, the fusion of Fischer's armed domineering and Enhancer's mind is only in its infancy, and its power has not yet been truly developed. But even so, its power can be opposed to Lee's 8-layer overlord color winding. Its power can be imagined. And this is just Fischer's Enhancer training not long ago, and the armed color is only at the intermediate level. This level of strength is already comparable to top-notch armed forces. Both of them specialize in destructive power. If they continue to improve, their power will become even more terrifying. And knowledgeable domineering is a fusion of Fischer's circle. The circle of the N system is a very special N technique, because it is necessary to separate the mind energy from the body and control it, and it is very difficult to separate the mind energy from the body. Even transmuter practitioners cannot maintain the mind energy after releasing it from the body too far away. Fischer's circle can reach 2,000 meters, which is already a very scary range. But after Fischer integrated the knowledge and arrogance, the range of Fischer's circle suddenly doubled, reaching a distance of 4 kilometers. Knowledge color domineering. This kind of special domineering in the world of One Piece is not like the Nchi of the N system, which is difficult to control out of the body. Fujitora, who became an admiral in the Navy's conscription plan, has a very terrifying attainment in this area. He can clearly perceive the position of the meteorite in outer space and pull it down with the force of gravity fruit. With a wide range of knowledge, he can be called the #1 person in the pirate world. Although Fischer's knowledgeable color is not as terrifying as Fujitora, it is still very good and has a few kilometers. Moreover, with the help of knowledge, Fischer also developed the particle-shaped circle of the Ant King Maroom in the later stage, which can go with the wind and spread far away. As for Overlord's color, Fischer did not choose to focus on thoughts, but on Overlord's color itself. Overlord's color cannot be improved by cultivation, but by the enhancement of the owner's vigor, which is recognized by Pirate World. However, here, Fischer is able to use the basic skills refinement in the N system to improve his will, improve his courage, and make his Overlord look stronger. After more than a month, Fischer has already felt that his Overlord color has improved significantly, and the power of the Overlord color has also increased accordingly. This is what Fischer has achieved over a month. In other words, Fischer, who has the ability to multiply by 10 times, can do this. If it were someone else, being able to harvest one or both of them in such a short period of time would be considered a high-spirited, not to mention so many abilities. As for the N of several other systems, Fischer has not developed it. Mainly time does not allow. More than a month has passed, and Fischer also ended his training this time. It's not that Fischer doesn't want to go on, it's that the time is running out. It is now August 25th, and in a few days it will be September 1st, when the auction in Youkexin City will start. Fischer is going to visit Youkexin City and meet Phantom Troupe. Although leaving Phantom Troupe to Kurapika, that didn't stop Fischer from finding these guys to talk to. However, before leaving, Fischer went to the botanical garden to see the condition of the vitality tree and the kiwi tree. However, it is clear that there is no change between the two. The recovery of the vitality tree is very simple, and it is also very simple to cultivate, but the branching seems to be very troublesome. Crook studied for several months without getting a definitive answer. As from the kiwi tree, Gailu seems to have already divided into several plants. This thing is easy to divide, and it is not as delicate as the vitality tree. However, the growth rate is too slow. Even if Crook instills vitality into it, it will grow very slowly. Crook doesn't have that much vitality to cultivate this thing, so it's not worthwhile. Vertical bar. You said you were going to Youkexin City tilde? Following Fischer and hearing Fischer's explanation before leaving, Menchai was immediately extremely interested. Well, go see Kurapika, and communicate with Phantom Troupe. By the way, Fischer nodded slightly, Wang Dihao, and explained, Hey, Kurapika, it's been a long time since I saw that kid. I'll go with you too. By the way, I also want to see the strength of the members of the A-level criminal group Phantom Troupe. Are you going too? Fischer was a little surprised. Yeah, let's go. Then I'll go too. I've been researching this time, and I'm going out to get some air, Crook said suddenly. Then I'll go too. Gailu followed suit. Well, let's go together, so I can introduce Kurapika to you. After all, we will be partners who work together in the future. Fischer did not refuse, nodded and said, You go and prepare first. I'll go find Grandpa. You all left together. This place needs someone to watch over, otherwise the vitality tree will be blown away by eel fans. Fischer gave instructions to the three of them, and then left the place. Chapter 109. Arriving at Youkexin, changes. We're not going to meet Kurapika. What are you doing wandering around here? Crook, who was walking on the noisy street, holding his head back, asked suspiciously while scanning the surrounding stalls. Ah, what are you talking about? Kurapika is not in a hurry. I want to go and see Killua first. Fischer replied gently. Is that kid here? Menchai asked with interest after hearing this. She still remembers Killua. After all, she was the host of the Hunter Association experiment that Killua participated in before. Well, the trio of Killua, Gun, and Lirio put on a paid arm wrestle on this street. After coming here, Fischer learned about Killua's situation from the steward in charge. These two guys have already joined Lirio, and they seem to have listened to Lirio's bad idea, and set up a stand for arm competition on this street. So Fischer decided to come over and have a look. Fischer remembers that Shizuku, a member of Phantom Troupe, also participated in this competition. Phantom Troupe's whereabouts are uncertain, but those housekeepers in the family can't grasp the location, so it's better to come here to gamble on luck than to find it by yourself. Of course, he can also ask Hisoka for the brigade's temporary location. However, Fischer didn't want to dare deal with that pervert Hisoka. 587 This guy wants to provoke himself every time he sees him, and wants to fight with him. Fischer really didn't want to kill him. After all, he was the official partner of the old brother Ilfan. Ordinary people have very little chance of encountering members of Phantom Troupe, which is why outsiders rarely know about Phantom Troupe. The two protagonists, Killua and Gun, are different. After the two came to Youkexin City, whether they were actively or passively, they met members of the brigade several times. This time is the first time. Where are they then? Menchai continued. That's where there are many people around. Fischer said lightly. There are definitely a lot of people eating melons in such things as wrist strength competitions. It is not too much to do 3 laps inside and 3 laps outside. They all like to watch the excitement. Although there are many stalls on this street, there are really no stalls with a lot of traffic. If there are, then only Killua and the others who set up stalls here today to make money. That's right. Then I'll look for it. After hearing this, Menchai ran out in a hurry, and disappeared immediately. You idiot, you've told them all. Of course you know where they are, and you can find them by following you, and you're wasting your energy trying to find them. Seeing that Menchai had disappeared into the crowd, Crook shook his head speechlessly. Menchai is full of energy. Let's just stay by Fischer's side, Gailu said softly. Let's go. Fischer continued to walk and said lightly. The two of them didn't speak a word, and continued to walk beside Fischer. At this time, in Youkexin City, in a gorgeous hotel. Boss, are we really not going to the auction tomorrow? In a gorgeous and spacious room, a middle-aged man with several tattoos under his eyes was asking Kurapika. Tazuoni, the original guard captain of the Nuoli family. However, in the past few months, Kurapika's strong strength has successfully replaced it. Kurapika became the captain of the guard, and Dazon became Kurapika's subordinate. At this time, Dazon was puzzled by Kurapika's sudden order. You know, there are things their lady needs in this auction. If they don't go now, they will be blamed by Booze. Don't worry, I have informed Wright, and Wright agrees with me. Kurapika replied lightly. A few days ago, Kurapika received a message from Fischer. During the auction, members of Phantom Troupe would invade the auction, so Kurapika immediately cancelled the plan to send his men to the auction to auction the goods. Also notified Booze Wright of the Nosra family. That's right, it's the notification. The relationship between Fischer and Wright Nosler was a partnership, not an employment. Not long after he came here, he showed his great strength to Wright Nosra, and reached a win-win cooperation contract with him. He protects Nyan Nosler, the daughter of Wright Nosra, and correspondingly, he needs to let the people of the Nosra family help him collect information about Red Eye, and even obtain Red Eye. Wright Nosler, who is very concerned about his daughter, is naturally very happy that Kurapika, a powerful N, stays by his daughter's side. The two hit it off and reached a direct cooperation. After all, Wright Nosler, got everything he has today because of his daughter, and Wright Nosler is very precious to Nyan. But why? Could it be that Miss Naiwing just gave up on the product she wanted? Another subordinate asked with a frown. The bodyguards present were very puzzled. There will be an accident at the auction tomorrow. If you go there, you will die. I will go there alone tomorrow. You guys will stay by Naang's side and make sure you don't let her run around. Kurapika shook her head and told the truth. Road. Phantom Troupe, those guys are not something crooked people like me can deal with. He can't do such cruel things as letting his companions die after knowing that he has gone. Moreover, after getting the information from Fischer, knowing that Nyanzen will be captured by the head of Phantom Troupe, when he goes out these days, he stays by Nyan's side every step of the way, even when Nyan is shopping. When he went to the toilet, he always stayed outside the toilet to be vigilant, not for anything else, just for the possible appearance of the leader of Phantom Troupe in the message sent by Fischer. However, a few days passed, and neither he nor Nyan met them. No, maybe there was, maybe it was because she saw Naiwan following her, so she gave up. He hadn't met the leader of Phantom Troupe after following for a few days, so he also gave up the idea of using Nyan to find the leader of Phantom Troupe. However, this does not mean that he will give up his vigilance. Tomorrow he will go to the auction alone, and he doesn't want him to be taken away during this period. Why don't you go, Kurapika? Why? As soon as Kurapika finished speaking, a person suddenly appeared behind him, wrapped his arms around Kurapika's neck, and started making a fuss. Hey, Nyan, I didn't say I would give up the item you want. But there will be an accident at the auction tomorrow, and it will be reopened at another day, and I will auction off the item you want at that time. By Nyan Nosla hugging his neck and shaking around, Kurapika was also a little flustered, and quickly explained. As you said, I won't let you go without me at that time. Hearing this, Nyan stopped making trouble, and smiled with satisfaction, her face full of bright smiles. Yes, don't worry. Kurapika pampered Nyan's head and assured her gently, while Kurapika was comforting Nyan. On the other side, on the street where Fischer and others were, this guy Menchai has encountered some things. Chapter 110 Encountering Phantom Troupe. You guys are members of Phantom Troupe. The strength is not bad. Menchai, who learned about the brigade's information from Fischer, failed to find Gun's booth, but accidentally met Feitan, Shizuku, and Franklin who were walking on the street. It's strange, forget about Franklin. The information about Shizuku and I should not have been leaked. Why do you know about us? Feitan, who was wearing a black robe that partially covered his face, asked calmly. Yeah, I just joined the brigade for a short time, and the brigade hasn't done anything important in the past few years. How do you know me? The cute Shizuku also tilted his head and looked at Menchai with a puzzled expression. You don't need to think about it at all. You know our identities, just kill us directly. Franklin also opened his mouth in a low voice. As soon as he opened his mouth, he was going to kill Menchai. Hey, are you a new member who just joined? You are the one who joined in place of number 8. Interesting. Menchai, after hearing the conversation between the three, looked at Shizuku in surprise, with a gleam in his eyes, and said with a smile, HMPH, it seems that you know our brigade very well. Since that's the case, I can't let you go. Feitan's eyes were already narrowed to the limit. Franklin on the side also broke off his own finger, ready to do it. I'm sorry, I'm not here to fight with you. Seeing that Franklin and Feitan were about to fight, Menchai quickly took over and said. However, as soon as the words fell, Menchai's face changed slightly, his figure flickered, and he left the place in an instant. The moment Menchai left the spot, Feitan's figure replaced Menchai and stood there. Phew, what a fast speed. Just do it if you disagree. Menchai stood not far away, wiping away the sweat that didn't exist with a dangerous look. It's really infuriating. Seeing Menchai's dangerous fake expression of wiping sweat, Franklin was annoyed, and directly fired his own ability machine gun, not caring that this is a busy city, and directly fired at Menchai ability. Endless thought bullets were launched from its remodeled fingers. Ding, ding, ding. The 4 kitchen knives waved in Menchai's hands imperviously, resisting the bullets from Franklin's machine gun. No, cut them into pieces, and fell to the ground. After seeing this scene, the people around were all pissed, and fled outside in embarrassment, fearing that they would be killed by Franklin's machine gun if they took a step too late, and the whole street was in chaos in an instant. Using them wantonly in the downtown area, you really are a criminal gang. While waving a kitchen knife with ease, Menchai's expression changed from the relaxed and freehand expression at the beginning to extremely dignified. She knows what it means to be a vicious person. If this kind of is used in this kind of busy market, what kind of tragedy will it cause? Menchai is very clear. And if he hadn't resisted all the machine gun bullets, there would definitely be a large number of casualties behind him at this time. Is it really good to keep paying attention to Franklin and not paying attention to your surroundings? At this moment, Feitan's voice sounded in Menchai's ear. Feitan appeared behind Menchai at some point, and stabbed at Menchai with an umbrella sword in his hand. On Feitan's right, Shizuku also held up the materialized pop-eyed fish, and smashed it down at Menchai with a blank expression. Menchai's eyes froze all of a sudden, and 4 kitchen knives appeared out of thin air again, almost blocking the attacking line of the 2 men. Boom. At the same time, on another street, Fischer and others were rushing towards where Chrollo and Gun were, and a huge explosion naturally caught their attention. Chrollo immediately spread out her circle. Menchai clashed with people, and they were all masters. Chrollo said after obtaining Yuan's information. People from Phantom Troupe, let's go and have a look. Without Chrollo explaining, Fischer knew who the conflict with Menchai would be. At this time, at this place, only the members of Phantom Troupe can make Menchai go to war. It's not that Fischer looks down on others, it's that Menchai's current level is already very high. Ordinary Menchai can clean up at will. Only members of the Phantom Troupe can cause trouble for Menchai. A group of people rushed towards the place where Menchai and Phantom Troupe clashed. On the other side, Chrollo and the others, who were engaged in an arm strength competition, also heard the movement from Menchai's side, and directly left the stall, and the 3 of them rushed over there. As expected of an A-level criminal group, its strength is beyond recognition. Menchai said with ease as he jumped up and down the street, constantly coping with successive attacks. You are the one. It's scary that you can still be so relaxed in the face of the attacks of the 3 of us. Feitan responded lightly. Seeking flowers. At this time, his eyes are still narrowed to the limit, but from such a small gap, it can be seen that his eyes are cold. The revealed killing intent has confirmed that Feitan is really going to kill Menchai here. If Menchai is not killed here, the information about him and Shizuku will be revealed, and daily walking will be very troublesome. Although he is not afraid of trouble, he doesn't want this trouble to be caused by others. The umbrella sword in his hand swung quickly and powerfully. Once the walls of the surrounding houses were scratched, they would be split into two and collapsed. There are already several buildings with several floors behind it that have been destroyed due to its attack. 0. In addition, Menchai has to deal with the attacks of Shizuku and Franklin. The battlefield is constantly changing, but it seems to be confined to an area and has not spread out. How? Do you want to try your hands? These guys are members of Phantom Troupe, and they are all first-class players. The strength of the two of you has improved a lot during this period, and it's time to move your hands and feet. Standing on a tall building, the three of Fischer were observing the battlefield below. Fischer looked at Crook and Gale said to both of them, let me go down and do some activities. I just developed chakra recently. I want to try the attack power of that thing. Crook said lightly, and then put his hands on his head. He clasped his fingers together, lazily stretched his waist and cried for a while, then rushed down, intervening in the battlefield like a cannonball. Then I'll go down and do some activities too. Seeing this, Gailu also said. However, before she went down, two figures rushed into the battlefield below. How did the two of them join the battlefield? Fischer reached out to stop Gailu, and said in surprise. One of them seems to be Killua. Gailu asked uncertainly. Of the two figures that rushed in, one of them looked like a child in a photo she had seen in Fischer's room, but she wasn't sure. It's Killua. Since Killua and Gun are intervening, then you don't want to go down and let them practice. Fischer nodded, and then said, okay, then I won't join. Jelly nodded and replied 6. Chapter 111 No, don't even think about it. Get out. Hey, Fischer, although as a companion, Kurapika doesn't want us to interfere. However, as one of the 12 earthly branches of the Hunter Association, isn't it good for me to just look at Phantom Troupe when I meet Phantom Troupe? On the roof of the building, after watching the battle below for a while, Gailu squatted facing Fischer on the edge asked gently. You're not a bounty hunter, you're not in charge of this. Why are you bothering with Phantom Troupe? Fischer looked up at her and said lazily. Although I said so, I still have the title of 12 earthly branches. Cut, nonsense. After all, you just have itchy hands, and you want to go out for activities, right? I allow it. Killua and Gun are still too young. Go and take over their battlefield. Fischer rolled his eyes and said contemptuously. Then I'll go down. Gailu showed a faint smile and said gently, then jumped down 297 and rushed straight down to the battlefield of Killua, Gun and Shizuku. Both Killua and Gun are still too weak. Although the talent is very strong, it is still a bit reluctant for Shizuku who can join the A-level criminal group like Phantom Troupe. However, the two are not bad. At least it won't be like the original book, where the members of Phantom Troupe are helpless and get caught directly. However, there is still an opportunity for the two of them to increase their cultivation base dramatically. After this time, throw the two of them into the island of greed. Let Batra continue to recruit passers, and Bischi will follow. Let Bischi train these two little guys. Having a teacher to teach and not having a teacher are completely different concepts. Looking at the battlefield below, Fischer muttered to himself, and easily arranged the future of Killua and Gun. However, with Killua's character, he will never let Bischi teach him. It's time to explain. With the teaching of Bischi, a professional who likes to teach students, the strength of the two should increase explosively again. Well, by the way, when the time comes, I will hand over the island of greed to Wutong. After all, I want Wutong to give Killua the vitality fruit. These two guys stayed in Greed Island for several months. Without the game of Greed Island, Wutong couldn't get in. Going in from the sea will also be expelled by Lee Aiza. Speaking of which, Laku doesn't know what level he is. From the performance in the original book, this guy is definitely stronger than Hisoka. I just don't know how it compares to Dad. While watching Killua and Gun who were driven out of the battlefield by Gailu, Fischer's thoughts continue to diverge. Although he is a member of Phantom Troupe, facing the three of Menchai in a one-on-one situation, the three of them are still not enough to watch. After all, the two belong to the 12 earthly branches, and they also received gifts from Fischer's system. In the past few months, they have eaten several vitality fruits, and their potential energy has been greatly improved. Menchai has also made a name for himself in the wetland, and his strength has been greatly improved, and his stamina is about to catch up with his father Silver. Feitan's combat experience is very strong, and his combat skills are impeccable. However, Menchai is not a vegetarian. He was trained in a place like the Wetmel wetland where life and death crises are everywhere. Menchai's aspects are obviously better than Feitan's. Powerful, facing Menchai, an existence that had been fighting in the depths of the wetland for half a year, Feitan was almost forced out of the little sun. However, it seemed that he knew that his two companions could not leave, so Feitan forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart, and did not really explode his unique move. In the original book, the outburst is because the companion has the ability to escape, so he is unscrupulous. Looking at Feitan, who was suppressed by Menchai and kept adding wounds on his body, but still did not explode his own trick. Fischer was a little puzzled, but, after careful consideration, Fischer also figured out why Feitan would do this. In the original book, Feitan directly exploded his unique moves. That's because he didn't worry that his unique moves would affect his companions at all. All his companions knew the power of his unique move and would run away immediately. But now, both Franklin and Shizuku are suppressed and can't run away at all. If he explodes now, his companions will die too. Both of you, move the battlefield quickly. While suppressing the anger in his heart to prevent his desperate attack, Feitan was also constantly urging Franklin and Shizuku to move the battlefield away from him. He doesn't ask the two to escape, but at least they can't stay by his side. Otherwise, if he continues like this, he really can't control the explosive trick, killing the enemy and exposing his own brigade members at the same time. It's easy to say. Constantly resisting Crook's fist that could destroy everything, Franklin showed bitterness. He has already suffered internal injuries just by resisting the attack, so there is no time to think about how to get out, how to transfer the battlefield. It would be good if he doesn't get killed. Gailu and Shizuku are slightly better on the battlefield. Gailu is now basically using the ability of poisonous fruit to fight, but Shizuku's pop-hide fish on the opposite side can absorb poisonous gas, poison and the like, which can be said to slightly restrain Gailu's poisonous fruit capable. However, even so, Gailu's own mine energy cultivation base is also very strong, and as a 12 earthly branch, her combat ability is also very strong, which is not comparable to Shizuku at all. It was the situation of the three of Phantom Troupe who were losing ground and were in danger. At the same time, Fischer, who was watching the battle on the roof, was very interested in Crook's battlefield, because Fischer discovered that Crook actually used two kinds of power in the battle. Nyanki defends the whole body, and the attacking fist is chakra. The attack that Crook uses is fist, and the ability is not used at all. Moreover, its attack is actually a strange power. That's right, it is the unique attack of the immortal body, the strange power attack. The powerful vitality transforms the celestial body chakra's attack. The attack of the first generation of Hokage Senjujima and the fifth generation of Hokage Tsunadeheim. It's also thanks to Franklin that he didn't get smashed into a pulp under the attack of this level of wind and rain. Brother, you are here. At this moment, two figures rushed up from below, and one of them shouted excitedly after landing. Yo, long time no see, Killua. Fischer waved to him and greeted with a smile. It was Killua and Gun who were driven out of the battlefield by Gailu, who rushed forward. Brother Fischer. Gun also greeted 1.7 obediently to Fischer. Seeing this, Fischer was silent for a moment, then nodded, as a response. This made Gun very happy, because Fischer seemed to be responding to him for the first time. Brother, I know that guy Menchai? But who are those two guys? Killua was also a little happy, but now he was a little confused, walked over and stood beside Fischer, looked at the battlefield below, and asked. Oh, you're talking about Crook and Gallo. The two of them are my direct housekeepers, Fischer explained. Hey, it's amazing. I wish I had such a powerful butler. Hearing this, Killua couldn't help feeling envious. Why don't you come to take over the family, then you can form a direct steward. Fischer couldn't help but his eyes lit up, and he bewitched. No, don't even think about it. Get out. Chapter 112, Kill Feitan and let him go. Hey, brother, who are these three people? How did Menchai fight them? After making a little joke, Killua asked out his inner doubts. The reason why the two of them intervened in the battlefield was because they saw the existence of Menchai, so they wanted to help. After all, Killua knows that Menchai is under his elder brother. It's a pity that things didn't go as planned. The two of them teamed up couldn't beat Shizuku, and they were hit by Shizuku's Popeye several times, and suffered a lot of injuries. Ah. They are members of Phantom Troupe. Shell replied lightly. Phantom Troupe. Hearing such an answer, Killua and Gun couldn't help shouting out. Well, Phantom Troupe. The three of them have almost come back. If you continue to fight, you will kill them. Fischer repeated lightly, and then muttered to himself. As soon as the muttering fell, Fischer stood up, looked down, and shouted, You three, it's about time to go. Don't kill them. 09. As soon as the voice fell, the battlefield below was instantly clear. The three Menchai stopped fighting at the same time and separated from the enemy. Afterwards, the three of them glanced at their opponents, and with a flash, they rushed towards Fischer. The three Feitans below also noticed the existence of Fischer at this time, and their pupils raised in unison. Feitan gritted his teeth and shouted, Fischer Zoldyck. Apparently, Ma passed the information on Fischer to other members of the brigade after she got to know Fischer last time, so that Feitan knew Fischer's identity the moment he saw Fischer. Hey, it seems that Michi has told you my information. Hearing what Feitan said, Fischer was not surprised, and said with a faint smile on his face. By the way, I don't care about your behavior this time, and I won't next time. Immediately, Fischer continued to speak, reminding lightly. Menchai knows that Kurapika wants to deal with Phantom Troupe members alone, so he will never take the initiative to deal with Phantom Troupe. This time the battle was definitely provoked by Phantom Troupe. If it was someone else, Fischer would send them to the West Paradise if they were so provocative. But, seeing as they are Kurapika's prey, so let's forget it this time. However, It was only this time. The next time you provoke yourself, even with Kurapika's will, Fischer will kill them directly. You bastard. Feitan, who was already on fire, burst into anger at this moment. Powerful thoughts erupted on him. Seeing this, Franklin wanted to persuade Feitan to calm down. However, before Franklin could open his mouth, Feitan's thoughts had already changed. A dress with many holes, only the eyes exposed, exuding a black atmosphere. Seeing this, Franklin's pupils shrank immediately, and he used his fastest speed without hesitation, and ran away into the distance. Shizuku did the same, running quickly behind Franklin. I really don't hesitate to die. I forgive you for your offense this time, but you still dare to do it. Looking at Feitan, who was ready to activate his ability, Fischer said with pity in his eyes. However, this time, Feitan below did not speak, but silently gathered thoughts. Laugh. What Feitan didn't know was that it was precisely because he didn't want to speak that he didn't have time to convey his last words. Without warning, Feitan felt a huge change in his vision. My vision has become shorter. In Fischer's hand, Feitan's head, which was taken off by Fischer, echoed such a thought at this moment. Then, the line of sight gradually dimmed, and the A's in the helmet gradually dimmed and turned grey. Feitan didn't even have a trick, and was killed by Fischer with lightning speed. Franklin, who was running, also noticed the situation behind him, stopped his pace, and roared out loudly. However, after shouting again, Franklin fled towards the distance at a faster speed. The same goes for Shizuku. Both of them knew that it was impossible to avenge Feitan with the strength of the two of them. The most urgent task now is to meet up with the other members of the brigade. Tell the companions of the brigade what happened here. Then we all figured out how to get revenge together. Why don't you keep them here? On the tall building, Kili looked at the after images of Franklin and Shizuku going away quickly, and asked Menchai beside him. Don't chase. I never thought of fighting them this time. It was because they were aggressive. The members of Phantom Troupe are the prey of Kurapika, and Kurapika asked us not to interfere. Menchai shook his head and replied, is that so? Killua nodded knowingly. Also, you two are still fledglings. You dare to fight with members of Phantom Troupe not long after learning. You must know that they are an A-level criminal group. Menchai reprimanded the two, very dissatisfied. Isn't it because I saw you being besieged by the three of them and wanted to share the pressure with you? My kindness was not rewarded. Hearing this, Killua was also very familiar. He stared at Menchai dissatisfied. Hey, that's why you joined the battle? Menchai obviously didn't expect the two to join the battle for this reason. Of course, you are brother's subordinate. Seeing you being besieged, you can't ignore it. Killua said angrily. Hey, you kid has a pretty good heart. I accept this love. If you come to me in the future, I will cover you. Menchai smiled, then patted Killua on the head, glanced at Gun again, and said to the two. Hey, yeah, then I'll take it seriously, and I'll come to you in the future if I have something to do. Killua immediately showed a cat expression when he heard that, and said with a smile. From the battle just now, Killua has already seen that Menchai is very strong. The three members of the brigade couldn't do anything to get her, and their strength was very strong. Killua reckoned that his eldest brother, Yami, was no match for Menchai either. Don't let such a strong promise be in vain. He. At that time, if you have any troubles, you can also find Menchai. Don't bother my brother. What's your phone number? Report it, and I'll save it. 113. Warning X Monster X reminder. Long time no see, Brother Fischer. In the hotel, Lirio greeted Fischer carelessly. You guy, you've been slacking off all this time. Haven't you practiced? Fischer, looking at Lirio at this time, sighed slightly, a little bit resentful that iron can't be steel. Even if N-Chi detection is not applicable, Fischer knows that Lirio's N has a lot of hips. Ahahaha, because I want to be admitted to medical school. I have been reading medical books since I went back, so I don't have much time to practice. When Fischer said this, Lirio was also embarrassed. He naturally knew why Fischer had such a tone. My own reading was taught by Fischer, but after a few months, my reading is so sloppy that anyone can see it. I don't mind you studying medicine, but N can't be left behind either. Moreover, with your transmuter ability, you can develop the ability to make great contributions to medicine. Fischer reprimanded seriously. Ability to contribute to medicine? Upon hearing that it was related to medicine, Lirio immediately became interested and asked, I'll tell you about this later. Fischer said lightly. The role of N developed by Lirio in the original book is very powerful. Not to mention other things, when it comes to medicine, this ability is very useful for surgery when combined with various medical devices. After all, the hand can directly enter the human body. The ability of the space system in one hand should be more proficient, and then practice a circle, so you don't have to point and cut during the operation. However, Fischer doesn't want to talk to Lirio about it now. Killua, Gun, remember, the two of you are exposed now. Don't take part in Phantom Troupe's affairs at will, and don't meddle at will. Don't follow them, you know. Fischer remembered what happened in the original book, and had to warn the two of them. If things happened as in the original book and nothing else changed, then Killua and Gun would not have a big problem even if they stalked the members of Phantom Troupe. But now, the two of them have been exposed, and the members of the brigade also know their relationship with them. Once the two were caught, in the case of killing Feitan himself, There was absolutely no way for the two to survive. In the original book, Nobunaga was moved by Gun's character, and it was even more impossible to even think about recruiting the two to join the brigade. He caught a trail that would definitely torture him to question him, and then cut him with a knife. I see. Chrollo nodded earnestly. He also knew this situation, so he was very clear about the consequences if they did this, and Gun on the side also nodded solemnly. Brother, my strength has improved a lot. I'll show you my practice. After Fischer finished telling, Chrollo said excitedly, wanting to show off in front of Fischer, and immediately broke out his own practice, with a high aura of 2 people vented from it. Hey, 45,523, your cultivation effect has become stronger. Holding a mobile phone in his hand, after testing Chrollo's neon chi in the air, Fischer looked at the value on the mobile phone and was very surprised. This is the result of Fischer's 2 months of practice, which has improved the embodied detection mobile phone and can detect it without contact. Excluding the mental energy raised by the vitality fruit every month, Chrollo's current mental energy should be around 42,000. When I parted from him before, Chrollo's neon chi cultivation level was close to 30,000 with the improvement of the 2 vitality fruits, which means that it increased by 12,000 in 2 months. The mind energy value is about 5,000, which is about 1,000 more than the previous monthly increase. This naturally surprised Fischer very much. If this situation continues, in less than 20 years, the air conditioning value of this guy in the district will exceed 100. No, according to Chrollo's current situation, maybe it will continue, and maybe the harvest of monthly practice will continue to improve. Thinking of this, Fischer is full of envy. Sure enough, I still underestimated Chrollo's talent. Well, there is nothing to envy. You are still not as good as me. I spend more than 20,000 to close to 30,000 a month. Fischer thought sourly. Hey, seeing the surprise on his brother Fischer's face, Chrollo also put on a complacent expression. Brother Fischer, I have also improved. Gun on the side also took the initiative to explode his practice, and said to Fischer expectantly, 46,032. Well, both of you are monsters. The corners of his eyes twitched. Fischer dropped a sentence and left here. If they stayed any longer, Fischer couldn't help but want to dissect these 2 guys to see what their bodies were made of. Hey, brother Fischer, wait for me. Tell me what you just said. Lirio hastily followed, shouting behind Fischer. Fischer is right, you are 2 little monsters. Even Crook, after seeing the strength of Chrollo and Gun's thoughts, had to sigh with emotion, and left here after leaving a sentence. Menchi:\vertical bar 2 little monsters. Gailu, come on, try to catch up with your brother. Seeing everyone leaving the room one after another, Chrollo and Gun looked at each other and laughed. Although it's called a monster, I'm still very happy. After all, it affirms our cultivation. Chrollo said with a smile. However, it is still far away. Gailu said just now, let's try to catch up with Brother Fischer. Brother Fischer's cultivation talent must be stronger. Gun also nodded again and again, and said seriously. Yes. Speaking of which, I don't even know how strong my bro's thoughts are. Chrollo nodded in agreement. Although he knew that he was improving very quickly, Chrollo still knew that his cultivation could not catch up with Fischer. Fischer only exploded his neon chi cultivation level in front of Hunter during the experiment, and then it disappeared, but Chrollo knew just that time that Fischer was terrible. Even the eldest brother Yifans dare not disobey Li Zhao's orders from the elder brother. Let's work hard together and try to catch up with brother as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Chrollo said to Gun. Yeah. Gun nodded repeatedly. Set a goal first, and strive to increase the intensity of the order to 100,000 within this year. Okay. By the way, you 2 little monsters, don't just know how to increase your potential energy, you have to cultivate your display energy, otherwise it will be useless no matter how strong your potential energy is. The training you did just now was too weak. At this moment, Menchi suddenly returned here, poked his head out of the door, and reminded the 2 of them. After being reminded, Menchi shrank his head back. The faces of the 2 of them froze immediately, and then they thought about it carefully, and found that it was true. Compared with their potential capacity, their manifest capacity is still too weak. Thinking of it this way, both of them were embarrassed, and they looked at each other, and they rubbed the back of their heads and laughed dryly. Chapter 114 Chrollo's decision. Is it the Zoldyck family again? In an abandoned church near Youkexin city, members of Phantom Troupe were gathering here at this time, and Chrollo, who was sitting on the ruined stones, murmured expressionlessly. In front of them are Franklin and Shizuku who have fled back, and the other members are distributed in various places in the church. What should I do, Captain? Shulnuk, who was sitting on a high place, no longer had the usual smile at this time, and asked with a serious expression. The eyes of others also fell on Chrollo, wanting to know Chrollo's decision. 2 months ago, Machi just brought back Fischer's information, told everyone about Fischer's horror, and asked everyone not to easily conflict with the Zoldyck family. I didn't expect this kind of thing to happen now, and they also got Feitan on their side. Zoldyck, members of this family cannot move lightly. Chrollo shook his head and said softly. The members of the brigade were not too angry when they heard the words, because their regiment leader didn't say no to revenge, but couldn't move lightly. It means that if you want revenge, you must have a comprehensive plan. Moreover, according to the information brought back by Machi before, the strength of this Zoldyck family's Fischer is very terrifying. Hisoka, you have intersected with the eel fans in the Zoldyck family. Do you know the situation in the 400 Zoldyck family? Chrollo looked at Hisoka, who was sitting silently by the windowsill, and asked Hisoka. Nothing, but Fischer middle dots Youkexin is a thunderbolt, which can easily kill me. Hisoka turned the playing cards, with a wicked smile on his face, and glanced at the brigade members who were staring at him, smiling said, "It's really scary to be able to kill you so easily." Although he doesn't have a good impression of Hisoka, Nobunaga has to admit that Hisoka is indeed very strong. Hearing Hisoka say that, Nobunaga's face is also very ugly. Yes, then there is no way. Shawnuk, after the auction, you use your hunter power to gather information about the Zoldyck family. Chrollo nodded regretfully, then looked at Shawnuk, and instructed Xiatu. The people of the Zoldyck family caused the brigade to lose 2 members one after another. The first time was fine, but the second time, their brigade was not made of mud, and they had to take revenge. He wasn't going to deal with Fischer. After all, the news that Machi reported at the beginning was, scary, but the rest of the Zoldyck family could give it a try. Sometimes the hands and feet are more important than the brain. He will not let the hands and feet go all out to deal with an enemy that is so terrifying that it is almost invincible. It is better to believe what is there than to believe what is not. This matter requires a long-term plan and intelligence gathering first. Understood, Captain, Shawnuk said with a smile. So, Head, what about the next auction? Shall we continue? Uvogin asked. Of course it will continue. After all, it's rare to gather together. We are a bandit organization, in order to seize everything we want. Chrollo replied with a cold expression on his face and slightly raised corners of his mouth. Oh, hearing this, Uvogin roared excitedly. At this time, Machi leaning against the wall was worried. She's the member of the brigade who has really faced Fischer Zoro apart from Hisoka. From the beginning, Machi didn't want the brigade to fight Fischer, because she felt that even if the entire brigade members shot together, they would not be a match for Fischer. However, now that the group leader has made a decision, she can't say anything, because once the leader's decision is made, the possibility of change is very low. The other members are also very supportive of the leader's decision. She is a soft-spoken person. The helpless Machi could only sigh heavily. Let's just hope things don't get to the point where it's impossible. HMPH, is this guy Chrollo trying to take on the Zoldyck family? It seems that all these geese must be killed in this brigade gathering in Youkexin city. As soon as Chrollo made a decision, Fischer received the news. As for the source of the news, it is naturally Hisoka, the white-eyed wolf. No. He is an undercover agent. This guy, right after Chrollo made his decision, informed Fischer about it. For this reason, I also made a request to Fischer, and I want Fischer to help him create a chance to fight alone with Chrollo Lucifer. This guy is still obsessed with dueling Chrollo. I don't know if Chrollo has made such a decision and there is no turning back. I don't care about the rest, but the members of the brigade must never take a step beyond Youkexin city. Thinking of Hisoka's request, Fischer shook his head speechlessly. Now that Chrollo has already made up his mind to fight against the Zoldyck family, Fischer will naturally not sit still. Taking out the cell phone in his pocket, Fischer made a call. This is Wutong, Master Fischer. What are your orders? When the phone was connected, Wutong's respectful voice came from inside. Send me 100 housekeepers and surround the exits of Youkexin city. Once you see the success of Phantom Troupe leaving Youkexin city, don't do anything. Call me immediately, Fischer said indifferently, holding the parasol tree. He issued orders. After accepting Kurapika as the direct steward a few months ago, Fischer drew the information about Phantom Troupe in his mind and passed it on to the family. Now all the non-housekeepers in the family know the appearance of the members of the brigade. Yes, Master Fischer, we will act immediately. Indus replied respectfully. After hanging up the phone, Fischer came to the French window and looked at the night outside the window. Is there something wrong with Machi guy's expressive skills? I don't think Machi will tell Chrollo the momentum I had when I was around him. In that case, why would Chrollo dare to do this? Or does this Chrollo guy have any plans? Or maybe Machi is exaggerating? Chrollo shouldn't have such a stupid idea. Looking at the night outside the window, Fischer thought silently. Well, since the members of Phantom Troupe made such a move, Kurapika should be notified as well. Thinking of this, Fischer made another call. Moshi, Kurapika, it's me, Fischer. Chapter 115 Contact Prelude. In Phantom Troupe, Feitan was killed by Fischer. Hisoka was not a real member of the brigade, and the newly joined Shizuka was also excluded. Then there are only 10 people left. In the Nozra family's hotel in Youkexin city, Kurapika began to think after answering Fischer's call. Kurapika's idea is that the debtor has the debt. According to Fischer's information, Shizuka only joined 3 years ago and did not participate in the killing of the Chrollo tribe 6 years ago. Therefore, For Shizuku, who did not participate in the coup to Kurapika, a brigade member of the Tar clan extermination, did not have the idea of extermination. Fischer has already said that this time Phantom Troupe must be killed in Youkexin City. I can kill a few depends on my own ability, the rest he will do directly. The plan can't keep up with the changes. Originally, I didn't want to hunt them down slowly. Since Fischer has spoken, that's the only way to go. With my strength, how many can I deal with during the auction? Sitting on the sofa, Kurapika lowered his head and drooped his hands, looking at the carpet with a blank expression. According to what you said, members of the brigade will come to attack this auction. Youkexin City, in the cemetery building, Fischer and others leaned against the fence of a corridor, looking at the gang members chatting and laughing below. Gailu said to Fischer, I just don't know if the brigade will attack here according to their plan after what happened yesterday. Kurapika on the other side continued, and standing in the middle, naturally Fischer. As for Crook and Menchai, they didn't follow, but were arranged by Fischer beside Killua. Although Killua and Kan have been told not to look for brigade members may also come to the door, so just in case, Fischer let Crook and Menchai stay in the hotel. After all, I wasn't worried before because I didn't have a big conflict with the brigade. However, now that he has killed the members of the brigade, Chrollo has also indicated that he will deal with Zoldyck, and things have gotten out of hand. And Killua is still here, so what if he doesn't take precautions? Didn't Hisoka tell you? The plan of the brigade has not changed. We will attack the auction as originally planned, Fischer said flatly. This point, Hisoka also told himself. Huh? Really? Kurapika was stunned when he heard that. But then he was overjoyed. That guy shouldn't lie to me. Fischer nodded and said, that would be great. Kurapika said a little excitedly. Her eyes covered by black contact lenses were already slightly red, clearly already emotional at the thought of dealing with the Phantom Troupe scene. Hey, are you going to deal with them here, or choose a sparsely populated place? Fischer turned his head and looked over, asking. It's a sparsely populated place. Fighting here will hurt a lot of people. After saying this, Kurapika calmed down and gave an answer. Although there are gangsters around here, there are also other ordinary people. Fighting in this kind of busy city has a high chance of hurting these ordinary people. The kind-hearted and upright Kurapika doesn't want this to happen. Well, then it's decided. These guys are free. It doesn't matter if they die or not. The members of the brigade will definitely retreat after they succeed, and then just follow them. Fischer nodded slightly and decided. However, the eyes of my clansmen appeared in this auction, and I can't just sit idly by. Kurapika frowned and said, don't worry. There will be no results in this auction. Remember the little girl you protected? The prophecy she gave to those gangsters. Those gangsters are very reliable. The Underworld 10 old man has also sent someone over to take away the auction item. I should have told you this before. Why did I forget so quickly? Fischer replied indifferently, but, as he spoke, Fischer had a strange expression on his face. Zero. Ask for flowers. It's about being concerned about chaos. Gailu interjected. Sorry, I forgot just now. Kurapika also thought of this, couldn't help showing a wry smile, shook his head and apologized. It's okay, let's go. Go and stay outside first. There will be a massacre here later, so don't watch it. Fischer nodded. Didn't care, turned and left here. Gailu followed. Kurapika also took one last look at the gang members who were about to die, shook his head slightly, and left here. As Fischer puts it, there will be one-sided carnage in this building next, and there will be nothing to see. How many members of Phantom Troupe do you think will come back this time? On the top of a building opposite to the cemetery building, Fischer and others quietly watched the cemetery building, and Gailu asked Fischer. Kurapika on the side also looked over after hearing the words. Hearing this, Shell recalled the memories of his previous life. Nobunaga, Michi, Shizuku, Uvogin, Shornak, Feitan, Franklin, 7. Feitan was killed by me, so there are only 6. It should be 6, probably. Fischer said gently. This is when the butterfly's wings are not flapping. Fischer wasn't sure either. Sure, there are 6. However, just after finishing speaking, Fischer changed his words, because he noticed that Shornak and others had already appeared on the top floor of the opposite cemetery building at this time, 6 of them. At this time, the 6 people were flying the hot air balloon. Seeing the person opposite, Kurapika's eyes turned red again. Soon, the hot air balloon flew up and flew towards the suburbs. Because Fischer and others used the absolute 2 perfectly, the members of the brigade didn't notice the existence of the 3 Fissers at all, and left in a hot air balloon. Sake, it's time for us to act. Let's go. Follow. Fischer stood up from the ground, patted the non-existent dust on his clothes, and said righteousness. Chapter 160 Informal Contact. It was still in the abandoned church, except for the members who went to the auction. The other members of the brigade were here at this time, and they were not absent. Hisoka, Chrollo, Cube, Paknoten, Shelflev, Finks, all 6 other. Aren't you worried they'll run into Fischer? That guy is very scary. Hisoka, who was leaning against the window, turned his head slightly, looked at Chrollo, and asked with a half-smile. Hisoka's voice made everyone present look away, looking at Hisoka, and then at Chrollo. No problem, Fischer Zoldyck, this guy doesn't seem to have any plans to fight us. If Feitan hadn't been carried away by anger this time, he could have come back. People in the Zoldyck family don't like to kill people except for their missions, so don't worry at all. Chrollo replied flatly without looking up, still looking at the Bible in his hand. You are too 157 confident, leader. After all, I have experienced that if it has nothing to do with them, if you don't provoke them, if it's not a mission, there's Zoldyck people will not kill people at will. This raid on the auction has nothing to do with them, so don't worry. Chrollo's tone remained calm, as if he knew the Zoldyck family very well. Well, that's true. Although the Zoldyck family is in the assassination business, they don't kill people without a purpose. Even Ilmi will do it because of something. Hisoka didn't say anything after hearing that. Thoughts are constantly diverging. It's a pity. It would be nice if these guys also followed along. This way I can be alone with Chrollo. Hisoka glanced at the remaining brigade members. His expression unchanged, but he sighed inwardly. What do you think I'm doing? Finks yelled unhappily after being glanced at by Hisoka, and immediately got goosebumps all over his body. Nothing, Hisoka replied with a smile. According to the information given by eel fans, Fischer has summoned a large number of Zoldyck family stewards to surround the various exits of Youkexin city. It seems that they are going to wipe out the brigade during this auction, and I don't have much time left. I have to find a way to distract these guys and let me be alone with Chrollo. After answering Fink's words, Hisoka looked away and began to think inwardly. If you don't seize the opportunity this time, there will be no chance in the future. He is very clear about the terrifying strength of that guy Fischer. A few months ago, he was able to hang himself without injury, and the momentum that erupted 2 months ago, that guy's strength was even more terrifying. With his strength, once such a decision is made, the brigade members have absolutely no chance of surviving. Involuntarily, various ideas began to flash in Hisoka's mind. The idea of transferring all the other members of the brigade away and letting himself be alone with Chrollo. While Hisoka was worrying about how to be alone with Chrollo, a phone call came in. It's Uvogin's call, and Uvogin reported to Chrollo about the attack on the auction. The auction warehouse is empty. Nothing. When Uvogin suspected that there was an insider, Chrollo immediately denied it, and deduced the conclusion closest to the truth from the information reported by Uvogin. It's amazing. Hearing Chrollo's analysis by the window, Hisoka muttered to himself, and his heart became more and more excited. If it weren't for Hisoka's good patience, he might have been desperate and rushed to fight Chrollo now. However, Hisoka still held back the restlessness in his heart. On the other side, the gangsters in Youkexin city also found traces of the brigade members, and a large number of gangsters began to chase and kill the brigade members on the ground. Fischer, Kurapika, and Gailu also followed. A group of people met on a rocky terrain. The brigade members dealt with ordinary underworld members, and the scene was completely one-sided. Then the members of the Yin Beast were immediately caught in an instant when they appeared on the stage. Because of Feitan's death, the members of the brigade held their breath, and all the enemies took action this time. The person from the Yin Beast came and was killed without even stirring up a wave. How does it feel? How many can you deal with alone? On a rocky mountain, Fischer looked at the members of the brigade below and asked Kurapika. Those 2 big guys. I can deal with 2 at a time, just those 2, Kurapika said very calmly, pointing at Uvogin and Franklin. Okay, then I'll leave the 2 of them to you, and we'll keep the other 4 at bay. Fischer nodded and said, although he could easily kill the other 4, he promised Kurapika not to do anything during the auction, and let Kurapika solve it. So Fischer didn't want to act now. Let's wait until the auction is over and there are still members of the brigade left. Nodding lightly, Kurapika stepped out and walked down the slope. At this time, in the huge rocky basin below, all the members of the brigade looked refreshed. Breathing is much smoother. Nobunaga inserted the knife back into the scabbard, and exhaled heavily. Indeed, after a little exercise, I feel a lot lighter. Sean-Ark also said with a smile while shaking his arms. Michi slowly retracted the silk thread. Franklin also closed the modified fingers, and Shizuku silently used the Popeye to devour the corpses all over the ground. You all do it. These guys are not enough to warm me up. It's Uvogin, who is very dissatisfied and complaining at this time. However, the next moment, Uvogin was stunned. The others also looked shocked, because I don't know when. Uvogin's body has already been wrapped with a silver-white chain, and a yellow aura emerges from the chain. There are still enemies. Everyone present was in a fighting state. Hey, interesting. You actually want to bind me with chains? Uvogin grinned, and then used his strength to break free of the chain. However, no matter how Uvogin struggled, the chains did not break, but became tighter and tighter. Uvogin's huge body was constantly compressed and bound together by the chains, and the whole person almost became a person. Seeing this, everyone present knew that something was wrong. Nobunaga directly unfolded the circle, holding the samurai sword with both hands, and then a ray of light flashed and slashed at the chain on Uvogin's body. Ding! A crisp tweet sounded, and Nobunaga's attack was bounced back, and the slightest 0.7 had no effect. Excellent, it doesn't even work against Nobunaga's attack, It's really strong. Uvogin, how are you feeling? Shulnak said with a smile, not at all nervous, and had time to ask how Uvogin was feeling. Others began to scan the surrounding situation, trying to find the enemy. It's useless, my chains can't be broken with your strength, just give up. When everyone in the brigade was looking for it, a voice came over. This was followed by the sound of chains shaking and trampling. Everyone's eyes quickly shifted to the past. I saw a yellow-haired figure slowly walking towards them, and the chains tied to Uvogin were being released from this figure. This figure is none other than Kurapika. At this time, Kurapika was extremely calm. His eyes were slightly red. Who are you? Chapter 117. The death of Uvogin, their respective opponents. Your enemy, he replied lightly. The chain in Kurapika's hand became tighter and tighter, and a look of pain appeared on Uvogin's rough face. Seeing this, everyone in the brigade focused their eyes, and unanimously launched an attack on Kurapika. However, in the middle of the rush, Michi, Shizuku, Nobunaga, and Shulnak all stopped. It's not that they don't want to continue to act, but that things around them prevent them from acting. At this time, a lightning prison with flashing thunder snakes appeared beside several people, and they were firmly bound in it. The dangerous aura from the thunder snake made them dare not take a step further. And Franklin was also frightened by this sudden change. He paused and stopped. Thanks, Chief. However, release that samurai as well. I originally thought it would be impossible to sneak attack this big guy, but now, this big guy is no longer combat power, and I need new brigade members. Seeing the few people who were locked up by the lightning prison and unable to move, Kurapika spoke indifferently said with the air. After speaking, the tip of the lock that bound Uvogin sank into Uvogin's chest. The next moment, 09 had blood at the corner of Uvogin's mouth, and his pupils jumped up quickly. Be careful, don't be tied up by this guy's chains. Cough. This chain has silenced mine and I can't use it. Uvogin, feeling his heart was pierced, forced the last in one breath. He spoke his last words intermittently, and then his eyes dimmed, and he fell straight on the ground, and the breath on his body disappeared instantly. In the face of Uvogin providing information to his companions, Kurapika seemed indifferent, allowing him to reveal the ability of his chains. Uvogin, Nobunaga, who had the best relationship with Uvogin, roared loudly with his eyes wide open. Immediately, Nobunaga also ignored the dangerous aura coming from above the thunder snake, and immediately assumed the posture of Yai/, and was about to attack the thunder prison that locked him. However, before he could make a move, the lightning prison around him disappeared, which made Nobunaga, who had already started to accumulate strength, feel as if he had punched cotton, and almost staggered out. Immediately, a gentle voice came into everyone's ears. Okay, then Nobunaga Hazama will be handed over to you. All eyes followed the source of the voice. That's behind Kurapika. At this time, there was a man and a woman there, and two figures walked slowly. After seeing these two figures, Shizuku and Michi, two members of the brigade who had contact with Fischer, shouted at the same time, Fischer Zoldyck. As for Shulnak, after seeing Fischer, his face became bitter, and he said with a wry smile, this is troublesome. The lightning on them was 100% caused by Fischer. After all, the situation at the scene had already explained it, and Hisoka also said that Fischer's N was lightning. Regarding Fischer, he has the same idea as the team leader Chrollo Sulfur. That is, Fischer didn't target the brigade specifically. As long as the members of the brigade didn't seek revenge, there would be no more conflicts. He can also use this time to gather information about the Zoldyck family and make plans for the Zoldyck family in the future. However, judging from the current situation, Fischer Zoldyck didn't shoot casually, but specifically aimed at their phantom troop. The five of them were on guard at this moment. Shulnak, report the situation here to the leader. Nobunaga stared at Fischer and the others, and Izan was ready to go, and shouted at Shulnak without looking back. Shulnak didn't speak, but silently took out the phone. No, the lightning has affected the magnetic field, so I can't make calls. After a few seconds, Shulnak said regretfully. Mine too. Michi on the side also spoke. Me too. Franklin, Nobunaga Hazama, come with me. Kurapika didn't pay attention to the conversation between the several people, but bowed slightly to Fischer who came to her, and then shifted her gaze to Nobunaga and Franklin. The two spoke. After speaking, Kurapika walked behind. Hearing this, the two were slightly taken aback, then took a meaningful look at Fischer and Gailu, and then at Shulnak and the others. After Shulnak nodded to the two did not speak, and left behind Kurapika. Only Fischer, Gailu, Shulnak, Michi, and Shizuku were left. Can you tell me why you want to deal with us? Xiao asked Fischer with a smile on his face after the three of Kurapika disappeared completely. I remember that the Zoldyck family has always only attacked assassination targets, and would not easily attack other unrelated personnel. Except for that one time 3 years ago, we members of Phantom Troop have never had any trouble with your Zoldyck family. And that festivities have settled down, haven't they? After asking, Shulnak continued without waiting for Fischer to speak. Indeed, people from the Zoldyck family will not attack others at will. They will only kill the assassination targets. You understand that very clearly. As expected of the only hunter among the members of the brigade, Fischer nodded in agreement and said gently. Afterwards, Fischer looked back at the direction where the three of Kurapika left, and continued. Did you see the person who left just now? He's from the Kairuta tribe. Now is my direct butler. In this way, you understand why I did something to you, said calmly. Fischer's expression didn't change. So that's the case. This is a reason for 017. I didn't expect that this time I would fall on the enemy I killed in the past. Chrollo also understood, with a wry smile on his face again. Gailu, do you want to fight this guy? Didn't you enjoy playing last time? Fischer didn't care, and asked Gailu beside him. Okay, then leave this guy to me. Hearing this, Gailu nodded and took over Chrollo as the opponent. Seeing this, Fischer waved his hand to undo the lightning prison on Chrollo. Hey, aren't you afraid that I'll take the opportunity to report what's going on here to the leader? Chrollo said in surprise after being removed from the thunder prison. Whatever, I never said I would stop you from calling. It's Justin's influence, and I can't erase that. Fischer waved his hand casually, saying indifferently. He was never afraid of Chrollo telling Chrollo what happened here. So what does Chrollo know? Anyway, it is impossible for the members of Phantom Troupe to leave Youkexin city. After this auction, all members of the brigade will die. Hearing this, the bitterness on Chrollo's face became even stronger. Come with me. At this time, Gale stood up and shouted at Chrollo, and then turned around and left just like Kurapika. Seeing this, Chrollo had no choice but to follow. Before leaving, he blinked at Michi and his younger brother, as if to convey some message. Chapter 118. Come again, come again, come again! Exclamation mark. Yo, we meet again. Regardless of the dust on the ground, Fischer sat down cross-legged and waved his hands to Michi and Shizuku. I don't want to see you, Michi said in a low voice with a vigilant face. Every time I see Fischer, it doesn't do me any good. The first time she formally met with Fischer, she was overwhelmed by Fischer's aura once, unable to move. Now this second meeting was a bad news from Fischer. Fischer has the whole brigade to deal with, and this is the worst news for her. She absolutely believed that Fischer had the ability to wipe out the entire brigade. Just by his terrifying aura, he knew that it was not in one dimension at all. The entire brigade would be easily wiped out against Fischer. It's really ruthless. Anyway, we had a one-sided relationship before, but now you say such words. Fischer joked after hearing the words. Who is going too far? The first time I used my aura to suppress me like that, and the second time we met, they said they would kill us. Hearing Fischer's words, Michi roared angrily. So to speak, I am indeed too much. However, there is no way. Who let you Phantom Troupe slaughter Kurapika's people? As the leader of Kurapika, I can't ignore it. After being slightly taken aback, Fischer spread his hands, indicating that this is something that cannot be helped. As a leader, if you can't help your subordinates take revenge, then what qualifications do you have to be a leader? By the way, Shizuku, you don't have to worry, because you are not involved in the Kairuta incident. There is a grudge and a debt. Kurapika will not do anything to you. Ignoring Michi's angry eyes, Fischer looked at Shizuku and said to Shizuku, it seems to be good news. Shizuku was not surprised when he heard the words, and said calmly, still with the look of a bookworm, you don't care much about this? Looking at Shizuku, who was still calm, Fischer asked with interest. F+F2, being targeted by a powerhouse of your level, most of the brigade will not be able to do a good job. I'm lucky to be able to survive because of this incident. Why should I care? Shizuku asked blankly. Besides, although I have been in the brigade for 3 years, I don't have too many opportunities to act together with the members of the brigade, and I haven't cultivated my relationship with them. At this point, Shizuku stopped talking. However, both Fischer and Michi who knew the meaning. The relationship has not been cultivated very much. Since there is not much relationship, then naturally it will not care about the death of other members. The members of Phantom Troupe get together very rarely. However, Fischer is more inclined to another reason. That is Shizuku's emotional indifference, which is not only reflected in the members of the brigade, but also in himself. Shizuku abides by the rules of the brigade and trusts the leader, but he doesn't value the members of the brigade, including his own life, is too calm and ruthless. In the original book, after getting the prophecy poem from Chrollo and knowing that he would die, Shizuku didn't care and behaved very calmly. It seemed that it wasn't him who died. Uvogin didn't feel much when he died either. And Michi wouldn't say anything about that either, because she knows Shizuku's character, let alone the lives of the members. Shizuku would not have any attitude even if his own life was lost. In other words, there is really no way to make an attitude if you lose it. Shizuku obeyed only the brigade's rules. For you, there is a chance at life. You'd better wait for this opportunity to come up. Ignoring Shizuku, Fischer shifted his gaze to Michi, smiling at Michi. What do you want? Heard Fischer. Instead of being excited, Michi became more vigilant, because she can feel that this is not a good thing. Well, after coming to Youkexin city, one of my abilities happened to have some breakthroughs, so I wanted to test it on you. Fischer didn't hide anything, and directly stated his purpose. Don't even think about it, Michi shouted with stern eyes. That's up to you. Fischer smiled lightly. The next moment, Fischer entered Menchai's thunder prison. Seeing this, Michi was overjoyed and wanted to jump out of here. However, as soon as he jumped back, Michi felt a pain in his neck, and then his eyes dimmed. "What are you doing?" Shizuku, who was still being imprisoned beside him, asked suspiciously. Because at this time Fischer was grabbing the unconscious Michi's waist with one hand to keep her from falling. "Well, let's test the ability we have just cultivated," Fischer said again. After saying that, Fischer put Michi on the ground, and then put his hands on Michi's body. Immediately afterwards, the familiar yet unfamiliar twisting force fell on Michi. That's right. Fischer wanted to see if he could twist Michi's mind with twisting force. Fischer also didn't expect that the ability to reverse damage and healing hadn't been developed yet, but the ability to reverse thoughts came from behind. This kind of sign appeared in the past few days when I came to Youkexin City. So Fischer wanted to find someone to experiment with. To find nature is to find this kind of powerful ordinary people living as ordinary. Fischer has no interest. Therefore, Michi became Fischer's experiment. Vertical bar. I wish my face could be as white as Olvia's. I succeeded twice in a row, Fischer murmured after putting away the released twisting force. Well, it seems that Olvia's face is not white, and her skin is wheat-colored, and it is still the same after several years. Instead, Robin has become Baifume. Withdrawing the force of twisting, Fischer used healing power to wake up Michi under Shizuku's weird eyes, and then looked expectantly at Michi, who just woke up and looked very dazed. "You bastard." Hearing Michi's roar, Fischer's face darkened, and he stretched out his hand again. Michi, who was about to rush up and attack Fischer, passed out again. "I don't believe it anymore, my face is so dark." "Zaumos." Again, Fischer murmured, using the twisting force again. Then, "You bastard!" Exclamation mark. "Come again, arsehole!" Exclamation mark. "Come again, Mix." "Come again, I'm fighting you." "Come again, come again, come again." After coma and waking up again and again, Shizuku's calm, Furui Wubo's face not far away also changed, and the eyes looking at Michi were full of pity. Poor Michi. But, what is Fischer's old geek doing? Why do you keep knocking Michi unconscious and waking Michi up again and again? Is that the reason for the spiral force? However, Fischer's experiment is still going on, and it seems that he will not stop until he reaches his goal. Gradually, Shizuku felt a slight chill, and his body trembled involuntarily. Chapter 119, The Last Time, Two Battlefields. Looking at the immobile Michi who was tied up by himself with a lightning rope, Fischer rubbed his chin and fell into deep thought. Is it because my face is black or I haven't completed this ability? It's not as dark as a face. If you don't complete the ability, what's the throbbing before? Fischer thought silently, not paying attention to the roaring Menchai. The power of twisting, and the ability to twist thoughts, is very difficult to get. Even with 10 times the talent, Sol has only produced a twisting power that has a chance of twisting a person's mind these days. However, just now, 9 times have been used on Michi. This Michi guy is still alive and kicking, roaring when he needs to. This sent Fischer into self-doubt. "Hey, Michi, are you okay?" Looking at Michi who was burning with rage and barking his teeth and claws at Fischer, Shizuku who was still in the lightning cage not far away asked aloud. "It's okay, it's just annoying." "Shizuku, do you know what this guy did after he knocked me out?" Michi stopped his useless growling and asked Shizuku. She was angry that Fischer knocked her unconscious 9 times in a row, but she didn't know what 320 Fischer did after knocking her unconscious. "When I woke up, I didn't feel that I was wrong. It just released an unknown force to cover your whole body after knocking you out. It's like this every time." Shizuku didn't hide anything, and told the truth. "Strength? Well, the unknown force is not the same as Michi, how do you feel?" Shizuku nodded, then asked. "Not at all. No difference as usual." "Are you sure this guy used some kind of power to cover me?" Michi was still a little confused. "Well, sure, I saw it with my own eyes." Hearing this, Michi couldn't help but meditate, carefully feeling the changes in himself. However, no matter how Michi feels about his situation, the conclusion is nothing. Decided, last time. If you can't finish it anymore, then you will lose this opportunity. Suddenly, Fischer's voice sounded, startling Michi who was in deep thinking. Immediately, Michi felt his eyes darken, and a figure slowly approached, the shadow covering her body. It was Fischer. Seeing Fischer's approach, Michi unconsciously felt a sense of uneasiness, kicking his feet on the ground continuously, and retreating backward. "Hey, it's just the last time. If I don't succeed the last time, I won't knock you out again." Facing Michi's rare frightened look, Fischer said with a smile. The next moment, Michi felt a familiar feeling, a pain in his neck, and his vision went dark. Before losing consciousness, Michi cursed Fischer's ancestors for 18 generations directly in his heart. "What the hell are you doing?" Shizuku couldn't help asking, looking at Michi who passed out in Fischer's arms again. "Secret," Fischer said with a smile. At the same time, in this rocky area in the outskirts, in another extremely spacious small basin, the battle between Kurapika, Nobunaga Hazama, and Franklin was gradually coming to an end. Franklin's 2 arms were drooping on both sides at this time, extremely swollen, and one of the 2 long earlobes disappeared. In addition, There was a deep bone wound on his chest, which was a serious injury. As for Nobunaga has armor. He is no longer dressed like a samurai at this time, with disheveled hair, his left face is swollen and livid, and there is a gap in his left shoulder, revealing the red and white shoulder bones inside. Obviously, this arm has been crippled. Now, although he can still hold the knife, he can no longer use his strength. On the opposite side of the two, Kurapika is not very happy. At this time, Kurapika's clothes also had a gap spanning from the shoulder to the waist, and there was blood in the gap. The clothes on the left hand had disappeared, revealing the white arm, the calm face, the corner of the mouth overflowing blood. At this time, Kurapika was staring at Franklin and Nobunaga with red eyes, agitated, even though he was seriously injured but still in a vigilant state. That's Kurapika's fiery red eyes. Kurapika who opened the red eye has entered the state of absolute time. Unlike Fischer, Kurapika's absolute time will consume its own lifespan. As for how much, I don't know. Compared to Nobunaga and Franklin, Kurapika's situation is much better. It's careless. After the Kurapika tribe was eliminated, it was right to hunt down and kill the Kurapika tribe who showed up. Otherwise, we wouldn't have caused today's situation. Holding a samurai sword in one hand, Nobunaga yelled in a low tone, staring at Kurapika with dark eyes through his hair. Indeed, I didn't expect that a genocide war would have such consequences. It's really careless. Hearing Nobunaga's words, Franklin's face remained unchanged, but his tone was very regretful. Franklin regretted that he and others didn't kill them all, and continued to search after the Kurapika tribe was wiped out, hunting down and killing other Kurapika tribes that were exposed. So much so that Kurapika became the climate, causing today's tragedy. After seeing Kurapika's fiery eyes, they know why the Zoldyck family, who don't make enemies at will except for missions, will attack them. All because of Kurapika. Kurapika joined the Zoldyck family and became a very important member. Facing the hatred of its members, the Zoldyck family will naturally not sit idly by. So it became the situation today. Is this your last words? Kurapika slowly raised his hand, not caring about the remorse and annoyance of the two, and the chains kept flying under the surge of thoughts. The next moment, Kurapika rushed towards Franklin, who was at the back of the two. The white left hand gathered a large amount of strengthening energy, and that breath became more and more terrifying. Don't even think about it. With a scabbard hanging on his waist, Nobunaga, who could only use Iaido with one hand, slashed this blow at Kurapika who was rushing past him. However, under the defense of Kurapika's chains, Nobunaga's very powerful attack could not hurt Kurapika at all. This made Nobunaga growl angrily and loudly. Damn it! What is the material of this obstructing chain? Why can't my attack destroy it at all? And when Nobunaga made a move to stop it, as Kurapika's target, Franklin naturally wouldn't sit still. His mouth opened wide, and a golden cross-shaped light appeared in the dark throat. Kurapika's complexion remained unchanged, and the arms of the enhancer, who were constantly gathering, clenched their fists and blasted them head-on. Franklin also opened his mouth wide, and then opened his mouth suddenly. A golden light blasted towards Kurapika. Boom! Earth-shattering explosions resounded through the sky. On the other side, Gailu dragged the unconscious Shulnak towards the place where Fischer was. Chapter 120 Nobunaga. The death of Franklin. Looking at the respectful Michi in front of him, Fischer nodded in satisfaction, and said confidently, I just said my face is not so dark. No, it worked. However, after being satisfied, Fischer was somewhat entangled. Michi is now his subordinate, but this guy is Kurapika's enemy. Forget it. If there is anything to worry about, just leave it to Kurapika. That's right. If Kurapika wants to kill, then kill. One more is not too much. One less is not much. Although there is a little entanglement, this entanglement comes and goes quickly. Kurapika has more potential than Michi. If he speaks by himself, Kurapika will definitely choose to give up revenge on Michi because of his own words. After all, there is the influence of God's grace. But Fischer didn't want to affect Kurapika because of Michi. After all, compared with Michi, Kurapika's potential is stronger, and the future prospects will be more promising. How did you do it? Shizuku on the side was full of curiosity at this time. Michi's situation. Shizuku is very clear that it is impossible to betray the brigade. Until just now, Michi was still cursing Fischer. But now this kind of thing really happened. She wonders what exactly Fischer did to Michi. Ah, by the way, Shizuku, do you want to be my direct butler? Hearing Shizuku's words, Fischer suddenly thought of something, and asked Shizuku. This guy Shizuku has nothing to do with Kurapika, but he can be recruited. You can talk about it after destroying the brigade, Shizuku said lightly. And then continued to ask, you haven't answered my question yet. Secret, Fischer said lightly, without any intention of answering. You wouldn't use that kind of power on me, would you? Shizuku didn't continue to ask after hearing this, but said with a little vigilance, huh? Do you want me to use the power of twisting on you? Unfortunately, my twisting power has been used up, and I don't have your share. Fischer shrugged and said casually, huh? Hearing this, Shizuku was slightly relieved. If possible, she naturally doesn't want to be directly changed by Fischer like Michi. Fischer, I'm back. At this time, Gailu also returned here, still dragging Kurapika in his hand, and greeted Fischer gently. This guy is miserable. Looking at Kurapika with a livid face, Fischer felt a little sympathetic to this guy. You don't need to look to know that this guy has become Gailu's experimental subject. Experimental body for poison testing. Hey, you're back, Gailu. After sympathizing with Kurapika, Fischer turned his attention to Gailu and greeted Gailu. By the way, Fischer, can this guy be handed over to me? I want to use this guy as an experimental subject. The powerful N's physique is relatively good, and they can resist my experiment. Gailu nodded, and then said some creepy words. Even Fischer couldn't help feeling his scalp tingle when he heard Gailu's words. Kurapika is really unlucky to be selected by Gailu as a poison test subject. Fischer looked at the comatose Kurapika sympathetically again, and said silently in his heart, you have to ask Kurapika about that. After all, members of Phantom Troupe are Kurapika's enemies. Fischer shook his head and replied, okay, I'll ask Kurapika later. Gailu nodded, and then stopped talking, walked to Fischer's side, and sat down dignifiedly. At this time, the heavy muffled sound of the wilderness battlefield where Kurapika was located was reverberating in this area. Nobunaga, who was bound by Kurapika, was bombarded all over the body by Kurapika's constant punches. With every punch, Kurapika would question, why are you able to kill innocent people without changing your face? Why are you able to do it? Why did you kill the Kurapika people? Are you just born to kill? 0. Where are the other brigade members now? However, Nobunaga Hasama did not respond no matter how much Kurapika questioned, because at this time Nobunaga has lost consciousness, and Kurapika's situation at this time is also very wrong. The attacker was like a machine, punching punch after punch. His face was expressionless, and there was no focus in the fiery red pupils. As for Franklin, this guy has already been lying dead. Most of his body was smashed by Kurapika's enhancer attack. In the original work, Kurapika may not be able to do this. After all, because of Kurapika's hatred for the brigade in the original book, his mind attack against the brigade members is very powerful, but in the final analysis, the foundation is insufficient. 0. Even after making the restriction and oath, the cultivation level of mind energy is not enough to launch an attack of this level. However, he was able to easily defeat and kill Uvogin, all because of the feat of restraining the middle finger chain, which sealed Uvogin's energy and killed Uvogin easily. In the case of using the enhancer attack to smash Franklin's half of Franklin's body when he didn't use the binding middle finger chain to seal Franklin's Neon just now, it is only now that this one has made a rule that he cannot use Neon on anyone to make his own Neon Chi. Kurapika, whose cultivation base has skyrocketed, can do it. Kurapika in the original book is obviously impossible to do, but it is possible to restrain it. The sound of the heavy fist attack was continuously transmitted here, and then echoed because of the rock wall, one after another. Finally, at some point, Kurapika stopped attacking and removed the chains from Nobunaga. Bloody and bloody, every part is good, and Nobunaga, who has long been dead and can't die anymore, crashes to the ground! Kurapika, covered in blood, looked up at the sky, at the bright silver moon, and remained silent. After a long time, Kurapika made a move, materialized a shovel, dug a hole, and buried the bodies of the two people in it. Then he staggered towards Fischer's direction and walked for a long time. Chapter 121 Insight, Choice. About 10 minutes after Gale came back, Kurapika also dragged his exhausted body back here. Your condition doesn't look very good. As soon as Kurapika came back, everyone present found that something was wrong with her condition, and Gailu asked worriedly, why are they able to kill with impunity? Kurapika didn't answer, but said sadly, the living environment. Most members of the brigade came from Meteor Street, and you must be aware of the situation there. Fischer replied flatly. Hearing this, Kurapika fell silent. As a person who likes to read and understand everything in this world, Kurapika naturally knows the existence of Meteor Street. It is a place where human life is worthless, and it is the most sinful place in the world. No one who came out of the 950 from that place was a good stubble. Take a good rest for a day and adjust your situation well. Looking at the silent Kurapika, Fischer urged. I see. Kurapika didn't resist either, and nodded slightly, accepting Fischer's kindness. He knew that his current situation was a bit strange, and he really needed time to recover from this strange state. Also, who are they? Immediately, Kurapika's attention was stunned and unconscious, and Michi, who was kneeling on the side, not imprisoned, did not look like an enemy at all. Kurapika was defeated by Gallo. As for Michi, this guy changed his mind when I was experimenting with new abilities and became an underling. You decide whether to kill or not. Fischer glanced at the two of them and explained. Kurapika, I want someone to test the medicine for me. Can you save one for me? At this time, Jellu also spoke. Is that so? Kurapika nodded suddenly, then fell into deep thought. A minute later, Kurapika looked at Fischer and said, if Kurapika kills Michi directly, I will hand it over to Gailu as a test subject for the test drug. Is it okay to deal with it like this, leader? You can decide on this matter, Fischer said with a gentle smile. Thank you, Chief. Kurapika nodded gratefully. From now on, follow Gale, Michi. Fischer ordered Michi. Hearing this, Michi glanced at Kurapika who was still pale, and swallowed involuntarily. I was very scared in my heart, but I still obeyed Fischer's orders. I see, Lord Fischer. Well, do I want to describe the favor to you? Fischer was a little confused at this moment. Once the grace is portrayed, then Michi is a member of his own faction, and he can get feedback rewards, and his strength will definitely increase rapidly, and his own heavy treasury steward force will also add a powerful battle record. However, Michi is Kurapika's enemy. Give her a favor, leader. Seeing Fischer's entanglement, Kurapika offered. Huh? Are you sure? Fischer was a little surprised, with a long mouth, and looked at Kurapika blankly. Well, since you, the leader, have changed your thinking and become a subordinate, you can be regarded as a member of the power directly under the housekeeper. Moreover, leader, you can get a lot of benefits from the members of the faction every time you take a direct steward leader. Kurapika said gently. How do you know? Hearing Kurapika's words, Fischer was even more surprised. Members of the power reported this kind of thing, but they never disclosed it. It is better to say that this kind of thing cannot be disclosed at all, due to the limitations of the system. How could this guy Kurapika know? Noted. When you gave me the favor, leader, I still remember the undisguised excitement on your face. Boss, you copied the red eyes from me at that time, right? The Kairuta have a special connection to their red eyes. When the fiery red eye trait appears, that is, when the eyes of the Kairuta people turn into fiery red eyes, our eyes will involuntarily resonate. If you don't suppress it, it will look like it is now. At that time, leader, you may not have noticed that after finishing the description of Grace, my eyes resonated with the fiery red eyes on you, leader, and turned red. Following by your side, leader, I suppress this resonance all the time. So I guess, the leader, you got the red eye trait, not the red eye zero. Kurapika said slowly, and in the end, the eyes turned red directly, and turned into red eyes. Is there such a thing? So, leader, what kind of ability did you get from me? The people on the side were all surprised when they heard the words, and Gailu, one of the parties involved, asked directly. I really admire your insight. However, is it really good for you to say it in front of outsiders? Fischer slightly admired, but then he was very helpless, and his eyes involuntarily shifted to Shizuku, who was locked inside by himself with a lightning prison. Here Shulnak is about to kill, and Michi becomes his subordinate, so no problem. However, there is an outsider at the scene. Shizuku is not one of his subordinates. This guy Kurapika said it here, which gave Shizuku two choices. First, kill Shizuku. Second, Shizuku becomes a companion. Anyway, this secret cannot be leaked out. Regarding this, Kurapika smiled slightly and said, Boss, you really want Shizuku to be our companion. But you have a gentle personality and won't force Shizuku, so let me make the decision for you. All eyes were on Shizuku. Even Shizuku, who is as cute as he is, broke out in a cold sweat after being watched by several people and hearing the conversation between Fischer and 5.6 Kurapika. Shizuku was not afraid that he would die, but was speechless because of Kurapika's behavior of calculating his boss. Glancing at the way Michi looked at him, Shizuku hesitated for a moment, then slowly raised his hand. I join. He who understands current affairs is a great man. Kurapika said gently. Shizuku, that's it, leader, hurry up and give them two favors. Turning his gaze back, Kurapika urged while looking at Fischer. Fischer, it's here? How about I avoid it? Kurapika tentatively asked in a low voice. Did I say this? Go back to the hotel. Chapter 122. Staring at One Piece's system, out of stock vitality fruit. I remember you are not afraid of death, and you trust Chrollo very much. Why did you agree? In the hotel, Fischer asked in puzzlement while portraying favors to Shizuku. There is no trust or distrust. The leader is alive, so he is worthy of my trust. But now, the leader has no chance to survive, so what's the use of my trust? I just want to have a safe place to live. Shizuku replied flatly. He trusts the head of the regiment, because the head of the brigade, like him, maintains the rules set by the brigade, just like her, so she trusts her very much. However, that is based on the existence of the brigade. Now, this brigade is about to disappear, and she doesn't need to continue to abide by the rules of the brigade. Being imprisoned in Fischer's thunder prison, Shizuku is very aware of Fischer's power, which is not something she can resist. Moreover, with the two men brought by Fischer, Kurapika killed Uvogin, 09 Nobunaga and Franklin alone. Shulnak was also easily dealt with by Gale alone. In addition, there are Mencha and Crook who easily crushed them yesterday. Shizuku can't see the way out of the brigade at all, and I was still excluded, not in the target. So let's find the next one directly. It's best to find one that is stronger and won't wipe out the entire organization. And the Zoldyck family fit that bill perfectly. I see. You really have a weak temper. Fischer nodded knowingly. Thank you for the compliment, Chief. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting a new powerful member and getting a sign-in reward once. May I ask the host if you want to sign in? Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting the ability feedback from Shizuku Murasaki, a member of the power, and the host for getting the Npop-hide fish. In Huai was even more engraved, and the long-lost voice of the system sounded in his mind. Okay, your grace has been described. Go to Gailu, let her spread the grace for you. Michi, it's your turn. come here. Without paying attention to the prompt in his mind, Fischer said to Shizuku and called Michi to come over. Yes, Master Fischer. Michi responded and walked over. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting a new faction member and getting a sign-in reward once. May I ask the host if you want to sign in? Ding. Congratulations to the desk for getting the ability feedback from the faction member Michi Kamishini. And congratulations to the host for getting the N-Stitch. It's okay. Hearing the system's prompt and feeling the new ability acquired, Shell nodded in satisfaction. Okay, you'll go to Geilu's side too. Immediately, Fischer drove Michi to Geilu's side as well. Yes, Master Fischer. Michi responded and left here. System, let's sign in. Shizuku and Michi. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for getting the suction fruit. Shizuku special version. Ding. The sign-in is successful. Congratulations to the host for getting the fruit of the line. Michi special version. The system is staring at One Piece. I know the strength fruit, but what is the ability to suck the fruit? Hearing the system's prompt, Fischer was a little puzzled. For the system, sometimes the rewards will give explanations, and sometimes there will be no explanations. It really fits the name of this company. Just let it happen. Hey, Fischer, aren't those two guys Kurapika's enemies? How did you become a companion? At this moment, Crook opened the door and walked in, asking Fischer. Kurapika's decision. Shizuku has no hatred with Kurapika, but Michi has been reversed by me and has become a subordinate. Now he is experimenting with poison for Gailu and is a test subject. Fischer explained. Hey, is that so? It's really strange that Kurapika would make such a decision. Crook was a little surprised when he heard this. If it were her, she didn't know if she would make the same decision as Kurapika. Well, indeed, to be honest, I'm also very surprised, and I'm very grateful. Fischer nodded and said, yes, thanks. The reason why Kurapika gave up Michi and let Michi become a member of the faction was mainly because he wanted Fischer to benefit from Michi, and Geilu's situation was second. For such a subordinate who thinks of himself, Fischer is really helpful. It's you, Crook. You need to work harder. Now that you have more companions, you don't have enough vitality. If you don't work harder to copy the vitality fruit, then I will have no share. Immediately, Fischer urged Crook. There are 9 people in the family other than myself, and now I have 6 direct housekeepers. The total is exactly 15 people, plus myself is 16. According to the situation of 1 person and 2, it is not enough. You can't favor one over the other, let one of them lose it, so only you have to give in. It seems to be true. I'll try to speed up the speed of 657. Crook heard the words, thought about it carefully, and found that it was really the case, then nodded repeatedly to reassure. Well, come on, work hard. Fischer encouraged, and then left here. The 2 system-exclusive rewards still need to be given to Shizuku and Michi. Soon, Fischer gave 2 exclusive rewards to the 2, and then they were attacked by the excited Michi and the calm Shizuku, and 2 rare scars appeared on their faces. At the same time, on the other side, in an abandoned church in an abandoned city near Youkexin City. At this moment, Chrollo Lucifer finally realized that something was wrong. Because several hours passed, neither Uvogin nor Shulnak contacted him. He made several phone calls, but the other party didn't answer, which made him feel very bad. Others also knew that something was wrong. Head, let's go to Youkexin City to have a look. Finks stood up and proposed to Chrollo with a solemn expression. Well, let's go to Youkexin City. Chrollo didn't refuse the proposal, and directly agreed. A group of 6 people left the abandoned church and rushed towards Youkexin City. Chapter 123 Contact. Leader, it has been confirmed that these are the Yin Beast members sent by the 10 Old Man. I came a few times before, and the battle site is in that huge rocky basin a few kilometers away. In the rocky wilderness on the outskirts of Youkexin City, Finks held a strong nin in his hand, facing Chrollo not far away. Open your mouth and say, everyone, hurry there as quickly as possible. Chrollo gave an order, and then turned into an afterimage and rushed towards the direction Finks pointed. The others also turned into afterimages one after another, and followed at the fastest speed. Soon, Chrollo and others came to the first scene where Uvogin and others met Fischer. Captain, I feel it. Cube came to a place, turned his head and shouted at Chrollo. When several people heard the words, they all gathered round. Turn a blind eye to the many corpses around. This is new soil, dug up from the ground, and someone was buried here, Hisoka said with a smile. Chrollo looked at Cube. Captain, here I feel a gadget I copied to Shulnak. Kubai replied knowingly. As soon as these words came out, the scene fell silent for an instant. The most popular thing is Chrollo, which broke the peace. Dig it out. Finks and Flaking Lev came over and dug up with bare hands. Soon, the 2 reached their goal. Shulnak, whose skin was livid all over, was lying quietly in the pit at this time, and he had already lost his breath. Everyone was silent again. Chrollo's eyes flickered, and he looked at Kubai and asked, Kubai, do other people have a copy of you? Yes. There is a replica I gave Uvogin not far from here. There are replicas of Nobunaga and Franklin about 2,000 meters to the east. Besides, Cube nodded, telling the truth, but stopped at the end, hesitating, not knowing whether to say it or not. Chrollo also saw Cube's hesitation, and asked, let's talk. Over there, There are replicas of Michi and Shizuku. Kubai nodded, and then pointed to an empty rock platform not far away. Hey, that's interesting. Hearing Cube's words, Hisoka suddenly smiled evilly. That is to say, have Xiao and Michi been caught? Peeling Lai asked. No, this matter is very interesting. Hisoka denied with a smile. What do you mean, Finks? The enhancer had question marks all over his face. If both Shizuku and Michi were captured, it wouldn't have put something like this that would guide us to find them, Hisoka explained with a wicked smile. It's also possible that the enemy discovered it, so they left the replica here. Paknotan retorted and argued. Do you think you can accept this explanation yourself? Hisoka said after hearing this, looking at her. As soon as these words came out, Paknotan fell silent immediately and did not refute. Because, if she were the enemy, she would definitely destroy the replicas that might reveal their whereabouts if she knew the replicas, instead of keeping them on purpose. That is to say, have Michi and Shizuku betrayed? Although he is an enhancer with a simple mind, he also heard a thing or two when Hisoka and Paknotan talked about it. No, it's still uncertain. It's also possible that Michi and Shizuku left it on purpose to convey something to us. Chrollo, who had been silent all this time, said. However, the next moment, Kubai's words directly blocked this possibility. Leader, there is nothing left above. Let's make sure Uvogin, Nobunaga and Franklin were really killed by the enemy. Maybe it's just a duplicate buried. Shelf Lev said a piece of nonsense. How could the enemy do such a thankless thing? However, even though they thought so in their hearts, Chrollo and the others followed Cube's instructions and dug Uvogin out. Then it was confirmed whether Nobunaga and Franklin were dead or not. Chrollo is really hoping that Peel Lev's grap is true. However, things backfired. Looking at the four corpses in different shapes in front of him, Chrollo remained silent for a long time. That's awesome, Fischer. In such a short period of time, most of the brigade's combat power has been resolved. Unlike Chrollo's silence, Hisoka was very excited at this time. According to this situation, the brigade will not survive for a few days. I'm going to go to Fischer now and ask him to give me Chrollo. I don't know if it will be accepted. Although it is very likely that you will be rejected, you can give it a try. Thinking of this, Hisoka recalled the scene of a one-on-one battle with Chrollo. Hisoka, what's the matter with you? Finks asked, frowning his browless brow. Nothing. Hisoka restrained his perverted aura in good time and said with a smile. Only then did everyone turn their eyes away from Hisoka. Commander, what should we do next? Finks asked Chrollo. Who do you think is possible and able to do this kind of thing in this place? This time, in Youkexin City. Chrollo did not answer Finks' inquiry, but asked a rhetorical question. When everyone heard the words, they all became thoughtful. Captain, do you want to say, Fischer Zoldyck? After a while, Paknotan said. According to my knowledge, at this time, at this place, the person who has this possibility is Fischer Zoldyck. The leader nodded and said with great certainty. He has great confidence in the members of his brigade. It is impossible for ordinary Nin to beat Uvogin and them. Even the ghost beasts of the underworld 10 old man were killed by them just now, and the remaining one was stolen by him and then released. Here, now, the only thing that can be done, the only one that has this possibility is Fischer. Hisoka, can I get Fischer Zoldyck's contact information? Qian Wang's, from that guy enemy? Immediately, Chrollo asked Hisoka. Fischer Zoldyck's contact information. I did. I met Hunter during the experiment and I made an appointment. Hisoka said with a smile. Yes, give me his contact number. Hi, this is for you. Hisoka quickly took out the phone and threw it to Chrollo. Chrollo took the phone, opened it, quickly found the Fischer column in the contacts, and called it directly. Soon, the phone was connected. As soon as it was connected, Fischer's voice came from the opposite side. Hisoka, why are you calling me? Let's not talk about the competition. If it wasn't for the sake of eel fans, I would have killed you last time. Hearing the voice from inside, Chrollo, who had some doubts about Hisoka, immediately dispelled the doubts. Then, Chrollo Ki spoke. It's me, Chrollo Lucifer. Chapter 124. Chrollo with a clear heart. Chrollo, sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, looking at the gradually rising sun outside the window, and listening to the voice from the mobile phone, Fischer's expression remained unchanged and he was very calm. It's me. Fischer Zoldyck, did you do this? Chrollo on the opposite side asked calmly. You mean Uvogin and the others? Fischer said lightly, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised upon hearing this. Sure enough, is it you? Why, the brigade and your Zoldyck family don't seem to have any grievances, right? What happened 3 years ago has already been written off. Chrollo seemed very puzzled, and he could tell from the voice. Karuta no, there are Karuta people in my immediate housekeeper. Fischer was silent for a moment, then said, and hung up the phone immediately after speaking. There is no need to say some redundant nonsense anymore. Just a few words of the Karuta tribe is enough for Chrollo to understand why he is against them. At this time, in the wilderness of the basin outside Youkexin City, Chrollo looked at the rising sun, slowly put down his hands on the phone, looked at the rising sun, and remained silent. The rising sun symbolizes the renewal of Vientiane, but at this time Chrollo's eyes are extraordinarily glaring, extraordinarily dazzling. Captain, Finks said, looking at Chrollo and calling, "050, go back and prepare for Fischer's old shot." Chrollo said lightly, threw the phone to Hisoka, and walked into the distance with his hands in his pockets. "Finks, peeling Lev, Uvogin and the others will trouble you, let them go to the ground." Actione calmly asked the two of them. "Leave it to us." Finks also calmed down at this time, and responded in a low voice, and then started to do it. The peeling Lev on the side also followed suit. Actione watched this scene silently, without saying a word for a long time. After burying Uvogin and others, Chrollo and his party returned to the temporary base. The entire base area was extremely quiet, there was no sound, only the faint breathing of everyone. No one moved, no one opened their mouths. This situation lasted until noon before changing. Actione, Cube, Hisoka. The temporary base that had been quiet for a long time finally heard a voice, and Chrollo called the names of the three. "Hisoka." "Leader," Actione replied, and the other two also looked at Chrollo. "Kubai, Hisoka. The two of you joined the brigade after the Kurapika incident, and have nothing to do with the Kurapika tribe. As for Actione, you didn't take any action in the battle against the Kurapika tribe. With this, you should be able to live." Chrollo said calmly, as if giving his last words. "Head, what are you thinking?" Hearing this, Actione frowned suddenly, and said inexplicably, it seemed that because of his emotions, his voice was no longer gentle, but slightly raised. Kubai and Hisoka did not speak, but stared at Chrollo quietly, wanting to hear Chrollo's answer. "Michi and Shizuku are definitely alive. Otherwise they will be buried like Uvogin and the others. And the reason why Shizuku and Michi are alive, I can probably understand. On the opposite side there is N who can detect polygraphs, who can detect a person's situation and life history. Shizuku, like Hisoka and Cube, joined after we killed the Kurapika tribe, so she didn't join the group. And Michi, her survival is what makes it possible for me. Michi survived because Michi was just like you. In the battle of the Kurapika tribe, we were the only ones to do it, and the task of you and Michi was to collect the red eyes as quickly as possible, so we survived without moving. When the time comes, let that polygraph tester test it, and they should let you go." Chrollo said calmly. Before, he didn't understand why Michi was able to survive, but after learning that the incident this time had something to do with the Kurapika tribe, he learned that among the dead were Uvogin and the others who had attacked the Kurapika tribe. Afterwards, Chrollo understood all about it. The enemy on the opposite side is principled and will not attack unrelated people. Here is Chrollo's guess. However, Chrollo really guessed a little wrong. Kurapika does have the ability to detect lies, but Kurapika has not used it. Kurapika acted based on the information Fischer gave him, and did not attack Shizuku because of the information Fischer gave. Shizuku did not participate in the Ninluta clan for a few years after joining. Although the process of guessing is wrong, the answer is correct. Kurapika really won't do anything to people who have nothing to do with it. Leader. Actione's brows frowned even deeper. "Okay, it's so decided. Do you have any comments?" Chrollo reached out his hand and interrupted what Actione was about to say, and turned to Finks and Pilaf. "I don't have an opinion, I have a grudge and a debt." Finks casually spread his hands and said indifferently, "This matter has nothing to do with Hisoka and the three of them." The leader asked them to leave, but he didn't care at all. He has nothing to refute about Chrollo's arrangement. This incident itself is the consequence of their past experiences, and he thinks he is a man who will bear the consequences. "I have no opinion either. However, leader, according to your arrangement, do you think we can't beat each other?" Lev also shook his head to express that he had no objection, but he was puzzled by Chrollo's decision. "It's useless, Hisoka can be instantly killed. How do you guys feel about the fight between yourself and Hisoka?" Chrollo shook his head and asked back. As soon as these words came out, both Lev and Finks looked at Hisoka. Hisoka returned a perverted smile, which made the two of them tremble, and quickly looked away. "Captain, do you really think this is okay? I mean, don't we take the initiative to attack?" However, although they had no objections, the two still felt a little unwilling and asked because of their voices. "The enemy is clear and we are dark. We can't find them. On the contrary, with the influence of the Zoldyck family, we can easily grasp our whereabouts. Just like that time 3 years ago. So, the only time we see them now is when they come to us. As for leaving Youkexin City directly, it is estimated that the outside of Youkexin City has been surrounded. We have a little trouble, and the opposite side can receive the information. Also, even if you can really leave Youkexin City, do you feel willing? The orphans of the Kurapika tribe will definitely hunt us down. Are you too willing to hide and be hunted down for the rest of your life? I have something to do, don't talk to me." Chrollo shook his head, said lightly, then returned to the place where he was sitting before, sat down, lowered his head, and said nothing. However, the thought energy on his body flowed weakly, sinking into the ground continuously along his feet. He has never been the type to be bullied but not fight back. Seeing Chrollo's appearance, Finks and Falef looked at each other, and they didn't speak again, but sat back to their seats silently. Yes, they will never be reconciled. Being hunted down all your life? It's better to fight vigorously with the enemy. It's worth dying. Chapter 125, Intruding Eel Fans. What's that book in Chrollo's hand? It was the first time Hisoka saw Chrollo's thieves' ultimate intent, and didn't know what kind of prop the book in Chrollo's hand was, so he couldn't help thinking about it. Although Chrollo has made it clear that Hisoka, Kubai and Pagnotan will leave, but no one has left here, and they are still staying in the temporary station. Hisoka is watching Chrollo right now. Chrollo is now with his head down, holding an open book in his hand. If you don't pay attention carefully and turn on then, you really can't tell that this is using Hisoka, Cube, the leader told you to leave. Why don't you leave? At this time, Finks not far away suddenly called out. What are you saying? Although I have only joined the brigade for a few years, I already regard the brigade as my own home. How could I leave at this time? Facing Finks' question, Hisoka said with a smile. Finks, I believe you, you bastard. You are definitely planning something. Finks said to himself without speaking, raising his vigilance against Hisoka. Captain, what about the people outside? Shira Lev also spoke at this time. He glanced at the window, and then said to Chrollo, never mind. They're the stewards of the Zoldyck family. They're professionals. They should have existed before. Now it has been clarified, so it has become an above-board surveillance. Even if you want to attack them, you can't find them. After all, the Zoldyck family is best at assassination. Chrollo looked up and replied. He has already sensed the breath outside. There are two auras outside, which suddenly appeared around them. And it didn't take long for him to leak his breath when he waited for someone to come back here. Obviously, the existence of these two auras was here long ago. It was only after he and Fischer's Zoldyck made clear the relationship between the enemy and us would he deliberately expose it. They are telling him, since it has been cleared up, then we will monitor you openly and don't even think about running around. That's why he said before that once they leave here, Fischer will know the situation here immediately. Shout, it's slippery, killers are really disgusting. Finks curled his lips in dissatisfaction. He had wanted to go out several times to look for the existence of these two auras since just now, but as soon as he walked to the door of the church, he felt the two auras instantly, directly erased his own existence aura, and hid himself. When he came back here, those two auras appeared again, extremely cunning. Hey, after all, one of them is a Neil fan, and it's only natural to have this kind of concealment technology. Hisoka didn't speak, but he was smiling inside. Others didn't feel who the master of the two breaths was, but Hisoka did. Hisoka knew who one of the breaths was. That is the existence of Yitan, who can be called his friend. Hisoka didn't expect that Ilmi would come to monitor the brigade. Things are getting more and more interesting. Fans, are you surrendering to Fischer? At this time, outside, on two of the abandoned buildings outside the abandoned church, there are two figures on the roofs of the two buildings. One of the figures was exactly what Hisoka thought. It was Ilmi, who was standing on the edge of the building and staring at the abandoned church in the distance with a calm expression. On another mountain, Wutong put his hands behind his back, and calmly stared at the abandoned church below. I didn't expect that Master Yomi would come here, it's really strange. While observing the church below, the peripheral vision from the corner of Wutong's eyes also flicked at the direction of Yomi from time to time. But at this moment, the heart of Yomi whom Wutong was talking about was very restless. Fans have come to Youkexin city very early. Wutong left Kukalu mountain with a large number of housekeepers on his front feet, and Yomi followed behind. I also know the information from Youkexin. I also learned about Kurapika's record and the event where Mencha and others fought against the members of the brigade. Crook, Geilu is one of the 12 earthly branches, so it's normal to easily defeat a member of the brigade. But why? Mencha and Kurapika also have this kind of strength. Mencha was able to deal with the 3 brigade members alone, and Kurapika easily attacked and killed a powerful enhancer expert, and then dealt with 2 powerful brigade members by himself and killed them without injury. Why were they able to obtain such a powerful force in such a short period of time? Although his face was calm, there was a turmoil in Yomi's heart at this time. Crook and Geilu, the 2 12 earthly branches, have such strength as a matter of course, and he also recognizes them very much. But why did Mencha, who was unknown before but entangled in strength, gain such strength in such a short period of time? 0. Dealing with 3 brigades by one person is still very easy and comfortable, and Kurapika's performance is even more frightening. It took more than half a year to directly grow from an beginner to this kind of team that can form a group of 10 people and 2 brigades and count it as an achievement of killing without injury. The common ground between the two is the change that only appeared after becoming Fischer's direct butler. Fischer, what are you hiding? With his mouth slightly open, Yomi whispered. After the voice fell, Yomi's figure disappeared instantly. Disappeared. Indus in the distance was startled, and he couldn't help saying, his breath was a little disordered, but he immediately controlled it. After all, he was spying on others now. 0. On the other side, in the hotel where Fischer is, Kurapika, who had just returned not long ago, appeared here again. How do you think Chrollo will react? Fischer asked with a smile as they sat opposite each other. I don't know his character. Kurapika shook his head and said truthfully. If you don't know a person's personality, you can't judge a person's behavior style. From the beginning to the end, Kurapika only got information about the brigade from Fischer, except for the brigade members he had dealt with before. He had never seen any other members of the brigade, Just now, Wutong reported to me. Chrollo has been staying in the temporary residence since he returned to the temporary residence and has not come out. The same goes for the other members. What do you think Chrollo is up to? Fischer nodded, then said, Indus, he's here too? Kurapika was a little surprised. Well, there is no one but Indus who can monitor the brigade and has the ability to adapt to changes, Fischer said. However, another person who surprised me also passed by. Having said this, Fischer's expression became strange. Unexpected? Negolsi has passed. I don't know where he made a mistake, Fischer said strangely. Say Cow Cow. Cow Cow is here. Who is Cow Cow? If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.